Folks, welcome to Talking Crit. I am Eric Tenkar, your bartender in the OSR, and your today's panel. We've got so many people, jeez. Next to me in the middle square is none other than Bad Mike Battleotto, my once a week work spouse. Flanking Bad
I
Mike
should be in the center. You're killing me, Smalls. You're killing me.
Uh, Flanking Bad Mike is none other than the one, the only Jim Kitchen.
It even says so in my title, auctioneer slash center square. You're killing me.
All right. Hold on. All right.
There we go.
There we are.
All right. So I'll wave to my once a week work spouse through you. There we go. Holding up Jim and I. What? Well, that's like a.
They might be beneath us.
Oh, is
Again?
Zach Glazar of Frog God / Necromancer Games. Am I correct in that? It is.
You are correct. You are correct.
Okay. And you are the coup.
I'm the coup. I'm the COO of both Frog God and Necromancer, which Necromancer is a fully owned subsidiary. But this Kickstarter is under that label because it's old school, so that's why I put that one there. Nice to see you guys. I've been on a long time listener, second time on caller.
Poor Michael is never coming back.
Yeah. And last but certainly not least, Michael Gross, project manager of Tome of Essential Horrors, Volume 2.
Correct. 2.
Dose.
on.
And oh my, listen, you people in the chat. I mean, I'll tell you to shut up, but I'm not going to do that. I'm glad you're yapping, but holy crap, I gotta clear out this chat now. Jeez.
I am so excited about tonight, I can't even tell you. When they told me that we would be doing a show on a Kickstarter that's nothing but 150 like monsters made out of ex-girlfriends, I was so excited.
See, that's not what we said. I want to make it absolutely clear. I actually said that I would never say that or do that because my wife watches the show and I saw her just comment. So
Never mind.
Actually, I was the wise one here again.
You're killing me. You're killing me. Michael, how you doing?
I am well.
Are you excited?
Yeah, this has been it's been a lot of fun supporting Old School Essentials and seeing the comments really on the Kickstarter where people are like making reference to stuff that we'd said on the first one. Trying to get monsters unlocked in this one. So, people have long memories, go figure.
No, really? In the gaming community? I'm stunned to hear this. Shocked. I'm shocked.
I'm just bringing cold facts that not many people know. I know.
So it's not about ex-girlfriends. Michael, why don't you tell us about the project? What's the elevator pitch for Tome of Essential Horrors 2?
The elevator pitch is we're bringing 150 plus new monsters for referees and for their adventurers in their Old School Essential games. And Old School Essentials is a BX retro clone. So it's about bringing old school monsters or monsters that we've put in other systems to the Old School Essentials and other BX games. It's been a lot of fun compiling them. We've had Aid Smith working on these furiously for a year and a half now when we first started working on the first book. And the hardest part really was narrowing it down that time to the first 100 plus, and the same thing this time around, trying to get 150 that are thematically similar, that's not all disparate, so there's a little bit of a feel to it, but at the same time giving a nice variety of new monsters that have never been done for BX.
Okay.
So it's been fun seeing the funding. Of course, we funded, I guess 4 days in, and
nice.
Yeah. So then
that's not a nice. That's an NOICE. That's a noise.
It is a noise. And then
trying to be a New Yorker.
We will never be New Yorkers. None of us. Forget it.
I think one thing
I'm
I
2
think
hours
is really
south.
fun about one thing I think is really fun about the OSC books is that the OSC books are actually fun to do because we have to actually really think carefully about some of these creatures, and some of them come all the way back from 3E Fiend Folio type stuff from our Toma Horrors, that era. So remaking them so they work really well in BX versus really well in Pathfinder and 3E 3.5 has made them a lot of them fun. And Age Smith has made that interesting to me because converting monsters to me is I take it less seriously personally than the people that work for me do, and I'm glad of that. But seeing how it works and actually digging in and caring a lot about the lost Michael, caring a lot about the actual the stats on it to bring it back to how I felt like when I was reading the original Monster Manual. That's been the fun part of me. Mike got a lot up and backed me up because he was there in the first meetings. The first volume. The first volume came out fantastic. It was one of my favorite.
I have a copy here. I was very proud of this. It's just an amazing book. I love the style. It's the digest kind of size hardback. But guess what? I can read it. It has big enough font that I can read it. So,
that was on purpose.
Yes, because I bitch about that all the time. So yes, but no, it's an amazing book. Amazing book. If you need monsters for any old school game, not just BX or OSE, this is a great book. I was very proud of this, and the artwork is great. The formats, it's short, sweet, to the point, kids. There's not 2-page long descriptions of monsters here. It's a 1-page. And it's just
A5.
How will I be able to use these monsters without 3 pages of emotional backstory and political machinations driving these creatures to do what they're doing? I just don't know if I can do this. Now, do all of the monsters have giant safety gloves made of Nerf, or is that optional?
The opposite of that. What they do have, though, is I think it makes it fun. Is the one thing we've done well at Frog God and Necromancer since the beginning of making monster books is we have a potential adventure hook with each monster. So there's a paragraph to 3 paragraphs of, hey, I'm fighting evil pixies. Well, the evil pixies came and stole my D&D modules. How am I going to go get them back? Or it's just a really basic way to show you an example of where they could be used. Not designed for you to use them or tell you how they're used, but to see them like kind of in action in a way that's interesting. I think that makes it different from almost all the other ones I've seen like this. I think they're well done. I think that Jeff Harkness and I think Skeeter Green from way back in the day, someone we borrowed from and converted from, who's in the audience, have written some of those actual hooks, and they've been actually fixed to work with OSE. And I think it actually makes it awesome. It makes it a very useful book. What makes this one different, and I think that is that, first of all, last time we weren't sure the actual demand. We weren't sure how many people actually wanted another OSE monster book. So we made them print-on-demand books. And like the one Mike has is a print-on-demand book. These are being printed as fancy as we can make them using our printer overseas. And these, I'm actually happy to say, are going to be different because they're going to be actually cloth for the cover. It'll be cloth with the actual gloss art on the inside. And they will have a book jacket that wraps around it. So you have both like an old school style book, and then you pull that off and it looks like an old school Victorian, like kind of a storybook. Or where we got it from was the Enchanted World books from Time Life, where you have a cloth like glued on the board, and then you have the gold leafing letters. That's the way the book is actually going to come out itself. We haven't announced on the Kickstarter yet, but I just got off the phone with the guy in China that is, or the guy that talks to them that is verified to me that they can produce that book that way. And our guy, Jeff Harkness, is actually doing the cover. So this is going to be a really nice book.
Zach, this goes in the face of everything about the RPG industry where you promise something and you deliver something lower than that. Are you sure you're stepping in the right direction? I mean, I'm troubled. You're rolling the dice the wrong way, man. You're coming up boxcars.
I am me. I insist on this. No, we're excited about that. And we've been trying to do something like that with the hardcover books for a while, especially for the Old School Essentials line, because we're doing real well, I think, is making sure that when we have adventures in books, that we're tailoring them to the system as best as we can. Because not every system can actually use the actual same, they don't work. Some games, some adventures, they just don't work that we write for 5e for OSE. So we're trying to make sure we match those. And I think that this style book and an A5 style is probably the best thing we can do for OSE. And if you bought the Whisper and Venom OSE, you'll know what I mean by the jacket, that removable jacket, because that is a double-sided. So you pull the top off in the back, there's a map. So you have the book jacket plus the book. So you'll have a gloss jacket. So it looks like, you see it in the store. That's what you recognize. But if you prefer the cloth like I do, you'll get that as well.
So Michael, when you were putting this together, I'm going to try to back and forth here for a little bit, but Michael, so there's going to be monsters that everybody's familiar with. What's your favorite new creation in this book? What's the monster that you're the most proud of because of how it's sort of shoehorned in, or it's something that people won't expect, or it reminds you of that person that you dated back in high school and you're still trying to forget?
Oh, man, hitting close to the mark there. No, that's easy. The orange dragon, because the dragons from Dragon 65, I don't believe have ever been done for OSR. So the purple, the orange, and the yellow. The orange and the yellow have been unlocked through the first stretch goal.
Yeah.
And then the purple one, we had just announced that when we hit 325 backers, we are just 14 away now at 311. When we hit 325 backers, we will unlock the purple dragon and another reward, which will be another monster. So, and that monster to be named later will be another favorite of mine. We could say it's in the world it came from. It has its world's name in it. So blank dragon. But when it's in other worlds, it's just another metallic type dragon.
So it's not the Greyhawk dragon. It's the something like a Greyhawk.
Oh my God.
Dragon.
It's the Athos dragon.
I just guessed. I don't know. Yeah.
No, Mike, you got it pretty much.
Oh, I did? Okay. I was just joking. I
God.
love the Greyhawk dragon. The Greyhawk
We are
dragon
the
was a great
saddest
dragon back
hosts in the
day.
history of podcasts.
That's a great. That is the Greyhawk dragon.
You can't tell that he was just gaslit on that. That's the part we love the most.
So outside of Greyhawk is known as the Steel Dragon.
That's right.
The Steel Dragon.
Yes.
Nice.
Okay.
So it was in 1E as the Greyhawk Dragon, and then I guess it was one of the monstrous compendiums. It was the Steel Dragon.
Eric, scroll down to the monsters. Scroll down so we can see the monsters. It's a little further. You'll see it here in a second. It's on that page. Just keep going.
It'll say Monster Roster.
Monster Roster.
There it is.
Oh, look at that formidable list. And that's a hell of a lot of boulets, by the way. I had no idea. Like, you guys went off the deep end in boulets.
Well, you know who went off the deep end?
Oh my God,
originally was Jim Wampler.
Well, I know, but it's black,
those.
blue, gold, green, red, translucent.
Yep, I love them all. I think they're great. Boulets are cool. I don't care what Tim Cass says.
I am not invoking Tim. He'll fight us all and beat us all.
He knows we love them. Otherwise, we wouldn't put them in there. They're great.
A cloaker. Okay. What's that? The Cragman. That sounds like Spoon Man. Spoon.
I'm upset because I don't see Stroke Lad in here. Where's Stroke
We
Lad?
took them out for you.
There's the Spiny Horror and the Spiny Horror Swarm.
He's the $1 million stretch goal level, Mike.
There's a heck of a
Stroke Lad.
They
wanted me to do a Stroke Lad. I refuse to do Stroke Lad. I'm not doing
the
Stroke
3M Sponge Folk. That's good. Trademarked.
If I'm allowed to wax.
Please jump in. Save us from ourselves.
No. If I can boast about the now 11-year-old author and 9-year-old author, the Jumping Moss Slime was written by our daughter. She's 9.
Excellent.
Oh,
and
it is excellent, actually.
The Elemental Skeletons, they were actually originally in the revised version of Monstrosities last year. They're written by my son.
How old's he?
He's now 11, but he was 10 when he wrote them.
Nice.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Outhouse
That's excellent.
Mimic.
And
Awesome.
Sid Quaid's art on those are they're just awesome. His art on that was awesome.
No,
And so how long have you been working on this, Michael? Sorry.
Well, I guess you could say a year and a half when we started working on Tome of Central Horrors 1.
Right.
Because we knew if it were successful that we were going to do a second one, and we were most pleased with how well the first one did. So, the concern going into the first was how it would be responded to by the OSC community if we were going to get a good response, and people were excited to get our monsters in that system. And then this year, obviously, it's more of an economical concern if people have the coin to spend on a elf book, as some would say.
Sure. But Eric, if you get a chance, go to the third update. There's a wonderful picture. There's a wonderful picture of the yellow dragon that we want to make sure we share with people. So update number 3.
All right,
and you'll see it. It's just great. I'm sorry. While you're talking, I want to show people artwork every chance we get.
No, it's fine. The art's better looking than we are. So.
Oh, trust me. I just love that caption. Haughty or shy?
It's true. No, I want to say that the Tome Essential Horrors, the way the art came out, Chuck Wright is the one who adapted some of the black and white art we had for the existing monsters. We converted to go onto a color page with a color theme, and they did it with red in the first one, and this one it was the green. And I think that the way it's been done really does make the book feel like an old school looking book, like a black and white from the 1E era, but gives it the kind of more of a modern feel with the splash of the color. And I just think this is probably my favorite book we have made of this style yet, because I think it really it appeals the old school gamer in me very much.
Mhm.
All the art is just exactly the kind of stuff that I would wanted to buy when I was younger, and that's what I'm trying to recreate. Because I'm not trying to change anything. I'm trying to make great stuff again. So.
And Michael, when you showed the elemental skeleton illustrations to your son, was he like, "That's it, that's it"?
Yes, there is a book. I'm gonna, I guess, shill for another company here, but Fat Goblin Games does the monster memoir. We got that
Okay.
for him for Christmas. It's like a workbook where you work on monsters. So he's filled like a third of this, if not more. And in it is like the old character sketch rectangle that was on the old AD&D character sheets, where he had a sketch. So I scanned that and gave that to Casey Christopherson, our art director, and he gave that to the artist and said, this is what the author's looking for. And when he saw, especially the Earth one, he's just like, he goes, Dad, that's perfect. He's like, so he's sitting at my desk is down here in the basement. He's next to me going, yes.
Yes. Yeah, if your products can't excite an 11-year-old, you need to go back to the table, right? That's what
Right.
I'm always amazed when people are like, "I'd like you to take a look at my RPG supplement. It's 1,200 cross-index pages with few illustrations because we didn't want to clutter it up. We didn't want to get in the way of the tables." And I'm just like, "Wow, you gave us the phone book. Excellent, excellent. Look at that bath. That's just great."
Yeah, the effects that Chuck in layout has done with the splash, the way it accentuates what the artist put in there, is really, the sonar of the bat just really looks awesome.
Yeah, I like that. You can just hear the noise too. So you've already hit funding. You hit funding at 4 days. Now we're just into stretch goals, and you're 14 backers away from the next stretch goal. So we have a goal, folks. We got to try to get more backers. Let's try to get to 325 tonight if you're watching the show live. What else? What else should we know? What is it we haven't talked about yet that is just the thing that you absolutely need to make sure people understand?
It's just about done.
Okay.
That's an important part. Like you see all the art and you see we have a downloadable like excerpt, and I know that Michael just told me today that he thinks that Chuck will have the layout done by the 1st, which means that as this ends, we will be ready to do the revisions and get it out. So it won't be very long on the wait. We're going to do the best we can to make sure it's the finest book it is, but it won't be much longer afterwards. So it's not a long wait, and this you pay for the printing and go. We're excited about this. I think it's going to be great.
And roughly how long from end of project to when do you reasonably think you might start shipping? Just an approximate. You don't have to give us like.
What does it say in the Kickstarter? We actually figured it out there pretty exactly. I'll be honest with you. If I just go from my head, I'm going to give you the wrong name. We're working on 3 of a Kickstarter.
January.
Right
Yeah,
January.
And that's the PDF way before then.
Yeah.
Gotcha. And you're sure you're comfortable with actually having written and done the layout without actually taking the giant bags of money first? I mean, a lot of people don't operate that way.
Yeah, we kind of have to. We want to stay in business. That's why when Bill started this all in 2000 at Gen Con, and we're at 2024, that's a lot of years to be in business in a third-party company. So we owe a lot to him because he makes sure that we're still here. Because the exuberance to make even better and more exciting things, I had to fight real hard for that cloth cover. I had to ask very nicely many times to make sure what he calls penciling. Does it pencil? And it did. We made sure it did, but I had to work real hard to make sure that's the case so we can make nice stuff. So yes, it's all paid for in advance so we can keep on making more books later.
And so who did your cover artwork?
Was that Adrian?
I think that was Quentin.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Is that Quentin?
Yep. And that's the cover. If you see it, how the cover looks there, that will be the cover that you see on the jacket. And if you cut out the Fenwich, that's what you're going to see on the inside of like the portal through the cloth cover. That's how we're seeing it right now. So
she looks familiar.
No, she doesn't. I don't know anybody like that.
Oh.
Just making sure you get a good enough view.
Stop. Oh.
I guess she's I guess she's holding the head of her last
husband.
Conquest.
He has my forehead.
My ears. Real quick, the one thing I do want to say about this is our reaction we did get from the OSC community when the book did come out, including from Gavin over at Necroc Gnome, was very, very positive. It was one of the more, I think, it was close to 100% positive for all the reaction we got from people, which is, if you know RPG customers, that's not always usual. So I think this one has if you're on the fence about getting this, or the last one, which is available now on print on demand and drive-through, if you're on the fence, I really recommend this as one you try, because it's a great book from us that really represents like what Michael and I and H. Smith and Mike Bialotto and the people that care about the Dungeons & Dragons like we played when we were young. We want to share that around. That's what we think OSC really is, and this is one I personally recommend highly. So I know a lot of soul went into this to make sure that it is exactly like it is. So if you're interested at all, I encourage you to at least take a look at the PDF or jump in for $1 and you get the stretch goal rewards, and you can think about maybe us taking care of the other end before the price goes up when we reach the book. So,
well, you have different pricing going on. People can, if the hardcover is out of your reach, you can get a print on demand soft cover. It also helps those overseas.
And that's the principal reason was helping people overseas. But there were a few people who did ask. The soft cover, of course, won't have the cool cloth part. That's why I would have to decline myself, because that's what I care about is, I'm way deep into books and how they're published and put together more than I should be. I will bore everybody who ever asks about it. Ask my poor wife.
The long-suffering Jen.
Yeah, so exactly what kind of glue are you going to use on that? Well,
I think the thing I was most proud of last time around was just how quickly we got like Zach was talking about, how quickly we got the PDF in everybody's hands. So that's what I'm looking forward to is well before the book is going to be in people's hands, the PDF will be there. And the fact that, everybody could be talking about it and using it right away is just the fact that we can do that quickly is a source of pride.
Well, I genuinely am impressed with the fact that you're raising the bar of the print level. I think too often, particularly when you look at swaths of RPG publishing, there's very clear trends where the industry leans this way, and then they lean this way, and they lean this way, and we've talked ad nauseum about artwork in the RPG industry, but one of the things that I think is so important when you hold a true first printing of the DM's guide, or you hold a true first printing of the player's handbook, and then you hold one of the later 8th, 9th printings or something even after that, you're really struck at how they were engineered originally like textbooks to last forever. They were almost impervious. Mm-hmm. And it's one of the reasons they hold up so well. And so I'm always very happy when somebody sort of connects the dots and say, well, we can actually do something better than that. We can make something that's going to last, from shelf to the chair to the table and back, and throw it in the bag, and it's gonna survive the journey. And so that's something I don't think we have enough people talk about, particularly when we have folks on the show. A lot of times they're their first Kickstarter or their small Kickstarters or whatnot, but they don't think about the long term. I'll do this digest, I'll do this. But I think engineering for the long term is really, I think that's just great. And I think, hats off to you. I think that's just a great thing.
I appreciate that. And part of that comes straight from the top. He's not here. He's working actually he's working on a old school, clone game called the Necromancer's game. He's actually playtesting that right now. But Bill has been very important to him since the very beginning. The books are built like a tank. In fact, it gives me a heart attack every time he takes a giant 800 page book and shakes it upside down to prove how good the binding is, but it's never broken on him. Not yet.
Right.
And the thing is that you look back and you're exactly right with the first edition books. And I can say that for a fact because at Gary Con many years ago, I got one of Ernie Gygax's copies of the DMG. It was like a third print, and that thing has been through hell. Thank you, Ernie, for showing that you could take that book, run over Jim's truck, and it still works. And it's still, the interior pages are still beautiful. The outside,
Yes.
heck. But you know what? Nothing's fallen out. Nope. I have not had one of the four plexes fall out. None of the actual stitching's been gone. Those things are made to last, and Bill Webb believes in that with our books. And that's why it was important for us once we knew people were interested in the old school essentials monster books to go and get it traditionally printed.
Right.
And so
right.
I'm real excited.
And I think if you're a book nerd, if you're a book guy and you've got that genetic defect, I think that's one of the things that you sort of notice, right? That one of the reasons that you sort of get drawn towards small press and so on and so forth is that they're willing to take the risks. They're willing to make something. They're trying to make something that lasts for the ages, and they move in that direction. So I think that's just that's just a wonderful move by your part. I think that's just great. And so then that raises the question is do you think about going back to volume 1 and trying to do a companion volume of the same quality?
We did think about that, and that's actually something that was on our list. But one of the things that we didn't was because in order to get it done like this one with cloth, to want to make sure that we could make that risk, I couldn't do it for 2 because I didn't think we'd sell enough of 1 and 2 volumes together just by the print run size to make it so we could sell it at the price point we have. Because to really sell these, I think to be profitable, they would probably have to be $10 more than we're charging now. But we want to make sure that they're mass market available, so you can afford to buy a really nice book, because we believe in it enough that we believe we will sell these over time, because they're work for any really BX system, and the way it's organized is really fantastic. I think that you'll know that it's better that way.
Right.
You'll want to buy them, and maybe we'll get a chance to do that. And if we do, maybe we'll do the 3rd edition. We'll have all 3 volumes in the slipcase or something. We'll see.
Oh, that would be a great idea. I think it's very laudable.
Arrives this month from for the End of Everything, Alex Kammer's book he wrote for 5e. I got the proof of that, and it's beautiful. We know we can do that now nicely, so I'm willing to try that on new stuff as we go, and that's something we'd like to see done.
So Michael, what's your history? What's your background with RPGs? How'd you start? How'd you fall into this?
I was in 3rd grade in the fall of 1980, and I saw kids at a table on a rainy day of recess rolling weird-shaped dice. So I walked over and said, what's going on here? And Kellen, my classmate, she said, I'm a dungeon master. My dad has a game called Dungeons and Dragons, so I figured I'd try it in school. So I can't remember who the other classmate was rolling up a character. She says, so tomorrow you can roll up a character. So the next day I rolled up my first character, named him Thor. He was a fighter. And that was my start. And then I went to my grandparents' house, and my uncle was into the game, and he was playing with my cousin, and I had brought my character. I said, I got my character Thor. And my cousin said, you better name him something else, or the god's going to come after you and smite you. So he got a surname that day. My grandfather had a binder up to the left that said Guth on it. So his last name was Guth. And then I just made it one name, and he became Thor Guth. So I actually wrote about him in one of the issues of the Oerth Journal. And he was my character who lived until he died, thanks to a manticore in White Plume Mountain. So I didn't know until I came back into the hobby that I had actually been playing OD&D, because Kellen was not allowed to bring her dad's books to school. So she had a giant notebook and hand wrote everything the summer before from the 3 little brown booklets into a 3-subject notebook. And that's how she ran the game. Yeah. So,
that's fantastic. And so have you stayed in touch? Do you ever?
No, she moved. Well, we moved in 4th grade. I think we moved before she moved, because she ended up moving out to the Midwest. I'm in New Jersey. I moved the whole town over. And of course, in 1982, moving a town over, you may as well have moved across the country, because no internet. My parents stayed in touch with a few families, but it wasn't I moved 5 blocks, and it was 1 block over in the new town. So we get into the new town. My brother and I had been playing BX for about a year and a half, because she had the catalog at the end of the 1980 that had, coming soon 1981 was the new the Moldvay basic set that was coming out. She said, tell your parents to get you this. So that's what I did. My dad bought that for me at Woolworths. And then we played that, got into the expert box just in time around the time we moved. And then the kids at the new school were all playing D&D. So my brother and I converted over, like, wait, you can split race and class are split? Wow, like blew our minds, right? So we switched to AD&D, but somehow they didn't have a dungeon master. So I became the dungeon master for everybody at the new school. And that was my gaming from 80 to 1990 when I went away to college. And apparently because Seton Hall University had a freshman dorm, nobody wanted to be that person that out nerded themselves. So my birthday's in September. I was planning to bring everything up in 2 weeks when I went home for my birthday weekend and came back up with all the gaming gear. Instead, it went to my parents' attic where it sat for 10 years.
Yeah. Travesty.
Yeah.
Tell us you rescued it.
Yeah, it's fine. I have it now. I'm using it now. So then got back into it with 3rd edition with my sister, my late first wife, and my brother, because my brother and I are like, well, do we want to go into, this is June of 2000. He got out of the Marine Corps. And he says, do we want to go into our parents' attic where it's going to be at least 110 degrees? Or do we just want to learn 3rd edition with our sister who was too young for the original back in the 80s? She was born in 84. So we're like, let's just learn the new game together because then it won't be intimidating to my late first wife. Because her brother had played and always told her it's too cool for you. You can't play this because, bigger brother. So we started playing in 2000. Around 2003, I started having DM burnout from 3E. And about 2004, 2005, I went on N-World, where I had gone for 3E stuff because I knew of a guy named Gary Gygax was posting there in a Q&A session. And I asked him about DM burnout. So he introduced me to Castles and Crusades because that's what he was writing for at the time. And then through that, a couple years later, I got invited to write a sector of Eggsboro, which I started to, but I had to resign my position because of the declining health of my late first wife. So that was late 2006. So I was writing for that from about late 2005 to 2006. And then I had to step away and give it to somebody else. And then she passed in May of 2007. Then, of course, Gary himself passed about a year later. My oldest, now 21, when he was 4, when she died, we would use D&D to help kind of spend time together with his grandmother. So we would play at the house we were at then. And then eventually I remarried in 2010. Took 6 years to get my wife to finally try it, but she plays now.
It's hard when you have to whisper every night. I understand, right? And still, right? Yeah, totally. More respect to you that you've managed it in 6 years because, yeah, I got nothing. Zero. Nothing.
I think it helped getting our now 11-year-old into it. So I think he was the catalyst because once he was starting to get into it at about 4 himself, and it's like, hey, Mom, this is awesome. And once she saw, like, being a former history teacher in high school, seeing our son reading voraciously, she's like, okay, maybe there's more to this than I thought, about the nerds at my school growing up. So
my wife, my grandkids would beg her to play, and she still gave them the hand. Nope, don't do that. Wouldn't play. Yes. I know my wife's listening right now, by the way, so don't yell at me, honey. It's true.
Mine too.
True. She would not play.
Now, my wife is super patient because I wasn't sure what system I wanted to use after we were playing CNC and had moved. And my son's like, can we try AD&D? I was like, yeah, we try it. And then we did stayed with Castles and Crusades after trying AD&D. And then because of working at Frog God, I switched to Swords and Wizardry. And then because that moved on without us, I switched to OSC when we picked up OSC to learn that. And then we stopped at Jay Scott, Lord Gazumba. It lives about a half hour from here. He does Greyhawk show on Twitch. His campaign's been going on for 40-some years. So we stopped at his house, and the kids wanted to see his huge miniature layout he has. And then my 2 sons are like, hey, Dad, can we switch to AD&D? So we're playing AD&D now.
Gosh,
but
what a journey, man.
Yeah, so I'm all over the place. So I'm a system veteran, I guess. It looks like.
So when you got the boxes out of the attic, did you just have this? Like, did it all just come hitting you when you were like, I forgot I had this. I forgot I had this.
You want to talk about like opening treasure? It was like opening treasure because Yeah, I obviously remembered the core books, and we have no idea what happened to our player's handbook. I've got some buddy's player's handbook secondhand from a store that used to be nearby, and we have no idea where our player's handbook was. But my brother had one of those old strip of applicators that you put text down. I don't know what it's called, but it's so he, for whatever reason, decided to mark his so other kids would know it was his with this. It was like a hand tool that you like. It reminds you of a price gun.
Oh, so you squeeze it. Yeah, the Dino labeler.
Thank you.
Dino
That's
labeler.
it. Yes,
That's
the Dino labeler. That's it. So he had that. So we have excellent misspelled and something else on the monster manual. But we know it's his because only he would spell excellent without the C. So
I respect your and what branch of the service was your brother in?
Marine Corps.
Oh yeah, that totally tracks. That's on brand.
Yep.
That's totally on brand.
Wow.
But in good news, and as tribute to him, his thief I could never kill, I wrote about, and he's in one of the O Earth Journal articles also, Urkio. That was his first ever PC. I never killed him. He made it to. I just found my old AD&D DM adventure log, and he was 40th level thief / fighter 9th.
Gosh.
My God, that's the most epic thing you've said tonight. 40th level.
I tried killing him, but thieves level up so easily. It's nothing.
I have 2 Tiamats, one for each foot. That's the most like 11-year-old thing I think I've heard in a long time. That's great.
Thankfully we didn't get that min-max munchkin-y, but yeah, that character I could not kill.
That's epic. That's just epic. All right, Zach, what's your how did you start? Where did you? What was ground zero for you?
The Dungeon board game, the long box third printing of Dungeon board game that had the Jeff D art on the sides of all the characters. I was in a swim team as a kid in Arizona in the summer. We had to drive in a car across the state. But back when seatbelts were not even optional, they weren't even like in the seat anymore. We were in a van in the back playing the Dungeon board game, and I thought I was just over the moon. Like, this is amazing. I couldn't believe it. And the next day, a friend of mine from the LDS church actually went to his church, and we went to the LDS church and we played The Sinister Secret of Saltmarsh. I made my first character to play that game, and I begged my mother for days and days and days, and to her, I must have been 7.5. She bought me the Moldvay Basic set just when it came out, and I just inhaled it. I could never stop reading the rules forever, and I played all the way through. I bought the second edition Player's Handbook. Thought I was okay, and never went further because at that point I was going to the military, and so after that I didn't do anything with it. I had thought about it nicely. I bought a third edition book with a gift card, and I took it back. I took it back the next day. I hated it. I absolutely thought third edition was terrible. I didn't like the way the language was in it. I wasn't that into it. And And then I was living with my wife in San Francisco. We were on a bus or a Muni, and I had an iPhone. I looked up vintage Dungeons and Dragons, and what shows up was a review of the Vault of the Drow by James Malswetsky at his blog.
Yeah, Grognardia.
And then about 62 hours later, I quit reading all the Grognardia articles, and I was back. It was like I was young again.
Boom.
I started writing Whisper and Venom about 2 months after that. And I wrote an old school, because I just wanted to write a module since I was a kid. I tried to write one for Dungeon Magazine, and I got halfway through and busy. And I actually wrote one as my bucket list thing. I'm going to do this, and I'm never going to do anything with it again. I just want to get this done. I turned into a giant box set, and then I wound up with Frog God, and here I am talking about binding.
Let me tell you the secret history, though. The secret history here. The behind-the-scenes secret history. When he read all those Grognardias, he felt like he needed to get some of his old D&D stuff. So he contacts this guy that's selling on eBay.
It's true.
Bad Mike. And buys and starts buying all this stuff from me. And then I
started with Soch Camp.
Did I reach out to you? Did you reach out to me and say, hey, do you got more stuff? Or hey, what's going on here?
I reached out to you because I was on the ACM. I would go to the ACM chats because I was starting to collect the old modules, and these guys are way out of my league for collecting. Went to the old chats, and then you guys talk about some weird sales guy in England. And I read this long thread about this guy who was cheating people on D&D stuff, and I just wrote a note to Mike, said, man, this cougar in our guy is really weird. He wrote back this long email about how I should avoid all these buyers, and we just started connecting. And he contacted me, though, the very first time, because I posted on Dragon's Foot. Thank you, Tim Cask, for writing the Dune Dragon magazine and his and the Q&A. thanked him and said, because I was really sick in 2008 or 9, like real bad, and I just said, it was really important to me in my life that you wrote this because it made a big difference to me, and as I recover from all this, it mattered to me a lot. And he said, you should come to a convention. You should come to GaryCon. I'm like, well, I would love to come to GaryCon. That sounds great. And then for the one time I ever saw Mike Balwell use any real initiative, I got a private message in Dragons, the only one I ever got, and you should come to North Texas. I'm like, I should go to North Texas, and I did. And that was probably the best time I had in a weekend ever. GaryCon like reawakened my absolute love for everybody in the hobby. Like, all the friends I should have ever had that I hadn't had in 20 years were all there. Like I met Alan Groh, I met Bill Barsh, I met Bill Webb. Not Bill Webb. I met Alan Groh, Bill Barsh. I met Jeff Talanian. All these people that I met there, and they were like instantly my friends. We had all this stuff in common, and so I was like going back. But I went to Texas, and it was insane. I was in a game in 25 minutes. I'm in a game with Steve Winter, and I'm in a game with Tim Cass because they rung a bell, and I went to Boot Hill for a while. Then I moved to play Gamma World for a while. Then we did all this crazy stuff, and I bought all these great books. And then I was in. And then one day I did the Kickstarter. It was pretty successful, and I was sitting with Mike at Gamehole, and Bill Webb goes, "I'm going to buy your company." I'm like, "It's not worth anything," and he did buy my company, and here I am.
So when you pitched your idea for Whisper, Venom, and Me, what was the famous words I said to you?
Every schmuck's got a module. That's what he told me. He said every schmuck's got a module. So,
It's
Free
true.
what?
It's true.
every schmuck has a module. Every schmuck has a module. Is what he told me.
He's like this heartfelt thing. Like, I've got this adventure I've been thinking about for years. I'm working on it, and I go, "Yeah, every schmuck's got a module."
That's it. That was
Oh,
exactly
you were the dream crusher. I've got this idea for a module. You and everyone else, child.
Yes, Is that not true? Is it not true? It's true.
Oh,
Everybody's
sweet
got an
summer
idea.
child.
My point
Why didn't you
was-
just tell me about your character as well? Was it a
My
40th
point
level
was-
fighter or a
Well,
thief?
it worked, Jack. My point was everybody's got an idea until you put it down and make it a module, and you did. So I was proud of you because
Do not trouble me with your
Two things
vaporware.
about that. First is that the other thing that Skeeter makes a point. The other thing that the first time I met Mike Balwell was
Here we go.
4 hours.
Here we go.
At the airport in Texas.
Here we go.
I sat in the heat, and he said his cell phone died and forgot about me, and I remind him every year. And I want to thank you, Skeeter, for reminding me. But the other thing is when I got nominated for the ENnie Awards for Best Production Values and Best Layout or something like that, Best Miniatures for Whisper and Venom.
I just loved it. Go ahead.
We're watching the ENnie Awards, and Mike hears who else is in it, and he cackles out loud, says, "You have no chance," like that. He was sitting there watching the award show. So he's been a very good friend to me, and I have to admit, he's always been encouraging me to do the best I can. And that's why I'm happy to be here.
Mike's new line.
Once again, my point was that they always they always get the awards.
No, you don't get to the point. You laughed at him. You cackled. That wasn't making a point.
You're like a Bond villain.
It was stroking my cat. Yes, you're
Hold
going
on,
to lose, Zach. You're going to lose.
My Bolotimus is very disappointed in you, Mr. Glazar.
Because every
My heart
so
broke. I
that was
didn't
back
have
in the day when the winners were there was 2 winners for everything, Watsy and Paizo.
Paizo.
Nobody else won anything.
I just look forward to Mike. I look forward to Mike going in like next week. Mike's gonna be like, you know what? Michael Gross's kids have more shit published than you, buddy. Until it's been kickstarted, I don't want to hear a word about your adventure. I don't want to hear a word. An 11-year-old got skeletons in print, and you have nothing.
No, I have one more. If you want to hear one more,
It's all true.
Like I can't wait to be in North Texas when Mike's gonna be like, Michael Gross's daughter has more shit published than you, and she hasn't turned 10 yet. When you can beat her, I'll listen.
And then to top it off, this is the guy that I drove with 10 times back and forth Wisconsin, 2-day trips. I probably blocking it out because my heart hurts how many times he insulted me then. It's been rough, man. But that's how I got here. So now I
did this because I love him and I tried to make him better. And I don't know where I failed, but I did try to make him better.
There's tough love, and then there's the cold hearth battle auto reality.
No, but all those things happen, and I'm not even exaggerating because you can tell by his face. None of those things are even exaggerations. We'll sit there and
they're really not.
Paizo beat me for one of the awards, and then WizKids beat me for the other one. So I didn't feel terrible, but the cackle it took away the moment, like the Oscars moment. It's like, and the nominees are, and he reads it off. And he's like, you're never going to win this. And
level drain. It was level drain.
Oh my God.
Paizo was going to win everything that year. Paizo won so often that I don't think they were setting up Paizo boys at the end. I think they were setting up hat check girls. Well, there's not even any hat check girls. They were just finding people. Yeah, you go up and accept this award, smoking their big cigars.
Okay, so if you're tuning in late, if you're turning in late, we've got a couple of folks here talking about their Kickstarter for Tome of Essential Horrors 2. It's exciting. That's what it looks like. We've managed to pick up one backer in the last 48 minutes.
Nice. I still got to back this thing.
Well, come on, let's get him to 325, you schmucks. You're killing me. Oh my God.
You schmucks.
It just hurts. It just hurts. Like Michael's gonna get off this and he's gonna tuck his kids in and be like, and I just want you to know that Daddy's very proud of you because unlike 99.999% of the RPG audience, you've been published. So you've got that in your corner. Like working on his kids' CVs before they're even into middle school.
Yeah. He's also telling him not to talk to Bad Mike.
Oh, God, yeah, that's right.
Now, this man here is the destroyer of dreams. Do not speak to the destroyer of dreams.
Whatever he says, do the opposite.
He is a liar, and he is worm-tongued.
I've seen fanzines published with higher editorial standards than the figment of imagination that you have.
Oh, 4 skeletons. Maybe you couldn't do 5 skeletons? There's not 5 elements?
Where's the astral skeleton? I don't see that one. Something has to come between the 4 elements, don't you think? Meanwhile, Michael's 11-year-old. It's like, I hate that guy.
Everybody does. Don't feel bad. That's what my answer would
be. We might get the angriest, youngest fan letter ever.
All right. So he. The good, the bad, and the ugly. We already heard the bad and the ugly. The good is Zach is my favorite person of all time to take road trips with, and every road trip we've ever taken has been the most amazing road trip ever. Even the last one we took was driving from here to Phoenix, here to his abode in Arizona, and we went on the green chili burger tour. Yes, that's a thing. We ate at the most giant steakhouse. We ate at that place where they serve you like a steak that big, and you have to eat it in an hour. If you eat it in an hour, you get it free.
In Lubbock or whatever.
And so this explains so much.
Yeah. Got it. And so all along the way, of course, in between eating, which we like to do, there's many conversations that if 5 minutes of it were known, we would be out of the industry tomorrow. Like we would never be hired by anybody ever again. So he's the one guy I feel like I can share my innermost thoughts.
A lot of the best parts of the early parts of Satan's Auction came from those trips because we would make a joke, we'd laugh, and then we'd try it again the next day. If we still laugh, we'd add it to a bit. So we did a lot of work on that act from North Texas.
Yes, it'd be like, how can we get Alex Kamer? And then we would think about 6 taco jokes, and we would laugh our ass off. And then the next day, we just have the same 6 taco jokes. Like, yep, they're all good. We're going to do these 6 taco jokes. And we did, and they would kill. And so... Yes, and so I always did my best creative work driving with Zach, and unfortunately, in the last few years, he's remembered he's married now, and he goes with his wife instead of me. So that kind of sucks, but
Yeah.
Oh my God!
Look at my
ball and chain. Oh, there he is.
Hey, there's 2 other things, Eric. Before I want to mention before we end, I don't know if now's the best time, but we have a couple new things coming out that I think is interesting to your audience that I just wanted to bring up. One of them is I know that at GaryCon, Bill had these. These are He's working on a
Necromancer.
This is only a press we did for GarrettCon of the player's handbook part of his. He did like a white box style game called the Necromancer's game that he's always wanted to make. They're working as a box set, and like I said earlier, right now he is actually playing that with playtesters. It started today, and it's got some pretty unique things in it that make it nice. And one of them is that if you ever see him play at a con, he has a room full of 20 people or 15 at least. It's a huge number of people. He has rules in there on how you actually run games for large numbers of people, which I think is interesting. I haven't seen done real well. And he also has a couple other parts that that he, from what he takes to a game, that he added to it to make it fun. That's coming out in the box set later this year, and we're pretty excited about that. I want to grab actually this right here and show you that. Come on, you.
Whoa,
This
watch
could
your
go
grabbing.
horribly
Watch
wrong.
your grabbing. Oh, there we go.
A little lower. Try that again, Sparky.
Oh,
I'm showing the logo.
He's showing that we're doing a DCC. We're doing a DCC.
Nice,
module
the Tower
now.
of Dead Thieves.
Yeah.
We are doing 5 adventures, it looks like, for DCC. One of them is actually a Rappanathic intro to see how the interest is for DCC. We have a guy named Emanuele Gratello. He's from Italy, works in Japan. He has a company called Kazuko Press. They worked with Goodman and over to convert to Italian DCC stuff. And he actually worked with us. They did Rappanathic in Italian. But he wanted to try some of our stuff and see how it worked to do it for DCC. And we'd never really done that because we don't have everybody in house that was really that was their thing, was DCC.
I think what you're trying to say is no one was a member of the cult.
That's not what I say at all.
No.
No. But the thing is that it came out great. I mean, this is finished. This is a finished printed book. It's not even for sale yet. We're going to be offering them. We're not quite sure how yet when we're done with the Rappanathic one, but it's done. It's all DCC'd up. And so
nice.
I'm proud of it. It looks nice. That's coming fairly soonish. I don't have a date on that, but what I do have a date on is we've been making for years we do it on Indiegogo because the number of platforms to crowdfund to make sure that you can produce everything and get out on time. And we have all the short books we make, because for a long time, no one was making short adventures. They were making long adventures because they were more economic. We have over 70 we've made since 2018 of short adventures, including like the Christmas one we did, How Orca Stole Christmas. And we have one for that Ian McCarty, of all people, wrote for St. Patrick's Day. But we also have ones that just across the border, different kinds of adventures that we only offered once in print. And they were offered in print in Indiegogo. And the number of people who used Indiegogo versus Kickstarter is much lower. We've had people ask for them. We had some on print on demand, but in general, these are really fancy printed. They're printed actually locally to me. I can walk to the printer. I can't carry them back. They're heavy and it's hot, but it's really close. And whereas I went there to get stuff printed, because they made fancy wedding invitations. So they really cared about print quality for small artisanal stuff like weddings or business events or stuff like that. So I asked them if they can make one of these, and they make them very nice. They make like 100-pound gloss paper, just like a semi-gloss, the gloss cover a little bit thicker. And the color, it just pops. They're beautiful books. And we decided that we're going to do a Kickstarter probably in September where you can get those reprinted, all of them if you want. But we're going to offer those with backer kits so you can actually pick and choose the ones you want to get. And it's going to be at a much cheaper price if you buy them in bulk. And so we're talking about 65 opportunities, and we're going to do them for both OSR, which OSR means either Swords and Wizardry or OSC. So we kind of have them as an OSR category. We have ones for 5e. We have the Pathfinder ones, and if people want those reprinted, they can talk to me. But the ones we're actually going to offer are those. And with 65 of them, there's something for everybody, and that's coming pretty soon. That will probably be the last chance we get to reprint those like this, because I think our printer after that is going to go on summer retirement. So they're not going to be able to produce 30,000 pages of stuff for us, because how we work with them is by the page we buy. So if you're buying 50 page books, that's how many pages. That's what we pay for the paper, and they organize them. We have different fees, but we're probably not going to do it that way again. So if you want an opportunity to see that, that's probably coming in September, and we have some really great ones. But my favorite is probably How Orca Stole Christmas. James Spahn did a wonderful job on that, and he did it very quickly in a fun way. And we produced that one. I think the second one we did, and real proud of that. And those are going to probably the last time you see those in print, at least not in the POD form. And that's coming, and I'm pretty excited about those. And because there are so many, you can buy in cheap, you can buy in expensive, you can buy in for PDFs. So those are available. We have them more expensively available in the Kickstarter. That'll be exciting too. So those are the stuff we have coming up in the near term. But in the spring, you'll hear a lot more about the Rapid Epic sequel. That's coming soon too. There you go. Thank you.
And isn't Frog God also have a Pathfinder bundle up on Humble Bundle?
We do. We have one that's. I think it lasts a couple more days. I'm not sure when it ends.
I think it's about a week left. So
it's a
look
second
at that.
one.
I actually have a link for it on the bottom of the screen.
Thank you. The Pathfinder bundle has a ton of stuff. We've done 2 of them. We actually were going to do one with Cobalt Press. So we're going to do one with all of our Pathfinder stuff from both companies. Well, Michael and I spent days setting that up. Setting up a bundle is a lot of work. We spent days setting that up, and Humble Bundle came back like a week later and laughed at us. So there's no way they could take that many files and put them in a bundle. They don't have the capacity to do that per bundle the way their back end is set up. So we had to cut it not in half, but in a third. Make a Pathfinder bundle. So this is the second of them, and we may have a third if this one has to do a little bit better, just because for Humble's internal reasons. But right now on this one, you can get 2/3 of all the Pathfinder we ever made for really cheap in PDF, and now's the time to do it because I don't think a Pathfinder 1 bundle is going to happen again, and just in the future. So it's one worth getting in on if you play Pathfinder 1. It's great.
Listen, I have converted Pathfinder on the fly to Swords and Wizardry. Whether it's 5e, Pathfinder 3e, they will convert easily to the older systems. Don't try to convert on the fly from OSC or Swords and Wizardry to anything beyond 2nd edition, because you're just asking for hell. But sizing it down, if you want, I think that is Razor Coast in this one. There's a lot of.
Do you remember? It was only one of the. It's in this one or the last one. I cannot remember honestly.
It's in one of them. I don't remember which of the 2 either.
Yeah, I'm not. Something tells me it's in this one. But the material that you're going to get, again, converting from Pathfinder to OSE or Swords and Wizardry, when you're getting books at like 30 cents a book, I mean.
There's a Pathfinder joke there, but I'm not making it.
Well,
I appreciate that.
Pathfinder by the pound, so I mean.
Razor Coast is in this one, Eric.
Okay, I was right. Okay.
Don't bring up Pathfinder by the pound either. That never happened, did it, Mike Battletto?
And one of our greatest moments that shall never be. The history books will not speak of it, but we know it happened because we were there.
The aforementioned How Orca Stole Christmas is in there for Pathfinder, if that helps.
Well, that's true. Yeah, if you're interested in Orca Stole Christmas, it's there. No, that was I still have the sign on my refrigerator here, but it's Pathfinder by the pound because Bill said we had to move some of the books. We were getting rid of storage, and we're like, well, we'll just sell it by the pound. Oh, that's a great idea. Well, that didn't.
Wait, you're leaving out a part of the story. Central part of the story was that it was rumored that Pathfinder 2.0 was coming out, and suddenly sales had just stopped on our own Pathfinder 1 stop. Like nobody was buying anything because everybody's waiting for it. And we were just a mite ticked off because we were kind of caught with our pants down on that one. We didn't know it was going to happen until they announced it. And all of a sudden, because we would have had a sale way before that, but no, they suddenly announced Pathfinder 2 and we're stuck with all these Pathfinder 1 books. And that's when Zach and I had the brilliant idea. Let's just sell it by the pound. Pathfinder by the pound. We'll have a scale. We'll have a scale there. We'll have stacks there, and they can see how cheap it is. All that was left was us to figure out how much we were going to ask for per pound. And let me tell you, it was the hit of that year's Gary Con. Eric was there too, and he saw the frenzy, the feeding frenzy of people stacking stacks of Pathfinder books. And the best part of it, we were mentioned in the media. Zach, remember that?
Yeah, the Blackgate blog, they mentioned us above Pathfinder 2's announcement. They mentioned Gary Con and Pathfinder by the pound, and then right below it was the Paizo announcement. And that wasn't probably the plan I had for it to show up.
We got dirty looks all weekend from Bowman and others as they passed by and did the sign of the.
Yeah, they were none too happy.
And we're just like, what are we supposed to do with all this Pathfinder stuff? You're coming out with a new version.
Were you gonna buy it? Who was gonna buy it?
It's good
So
stuff.
it was a rip roaring success. I think we got rid of pretty much every Pathfinder book we had in the warehouse up there in Wisconsin.
A lot of that work was by Skeeter Green, those Pathfinder books. So
Pathfinder
you
players are healthier. Pathfinder players are
pound.
healthier than all the other role players simply because they're used to lugging giant bags with every rule.
Yes.
Like those guys can like deadlift 800 pounds because that's just the first 37 books they need at the table.
All right, Popeye.
I have an important question. I need everybody's opinion here because I actually don't know, and I just need everybody's opinion. Should I see Deadpool and Wolverine tomorrow at 3 p.m., 4 p.m., or 7:15? Because
Who's going with you?
By myself because the wife
3
is
p.m.
Okay,
3 p.m.
Thank you, Jim. See,
yes,
I knew you guys would have an answer
because then you can walk out of it, and if it was bad, which it won't be, then you can go celebrate it at a good restaurant. Like you can tie the feed bag on. But if you go later, then the problem you face is being in the movie theater where there's somebody who's somehow managed to convince their girlfriend or boyfriend that it's a date movie, and it is not a date movie.
You're right.
And then you're going to have to hear them bitching in the theater like, you told me it was a date movie. This isn't romantic. I don't understand. Why do we have to stare at his ass all the time? It's just going to be that.
Well, hold on. First of all, that girl, if your date says that, she needs to go walk home because when you have Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds together, that is romantic. That is the bromance of all bromances. So she doesn't know what she's talking about. And that guy, I would turn around and say, she needs to walk home, just let you know, and then turn back around. And he'd probably high-five me and just, way to go.
I'm going to say this right now. I hope that this is it, that Hugh Jackman can walk off into the sunset and leave Wolverine behind. And I'm going to tell you right now who it is they should cast for Wolverine in every one of the movies going forward. There's no question, and he can pull it off. They just have to ask him to do it. Who here has watched Letterkenny? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
No, I have no idea what you're talking about. But that's
on
okay.
Hulu. So on Hulu, there is a show called Letterkenny, and it's about a small town in northern Ontario with the Hicks, the Skids, and the Jocks. And so it's nothing but farmers, drug dealers, and hockey players.
Oh, nice.
And the guy who created, now, I'm not doing it justice. This is the funniest show that's ever aired in Canada. And it was so big. It was on the equivalent of Netflix in Canada. It was so big and subscriber base quadrupled because of this show that the CBC paid to air the first episode of the show after the Super Bowl that year. And if you have to have the captions on because you can't catch the jokes. They come so fast. And the guy behind the show, the guy who is responsible for the show, who is the lead actor, he plays the character Wayne, is a guy named Jared Kiso. And this is a jacked, fit dude who could pull off Wolverine. Like somebody just has enough sense to put Jared Kiso in as Wolverine, it's over. It's going to be game over because he's perfect. And he's funny in Letterkenny.
And he's Canadian. He's Canadian.
Yeah, he's Canadian. And he's Canadian, right? And this just takes all this. Why you have an Australian? Why do you have an Australian playing a Canadian, eh? Like it just takes it all off the table. But if you haven't watched Letterkenny, you need to watch Letterkenny. It's unbelievably foul, right? This is a hard R. And there's a sequel show that I actually think is better called Shoresy, but I can't spoil any of it. Watch Letterkenny first. If you like Letterkenny, you'll love Shoresy.
It's very deadpan. If you like deadpan humor, this is the deadest of deadpan humor that you've ever seen. It's great.
It is wonderful. It's really, really, really good. But Jared Kiso needs to be Wolverine. There's just no question.
But put the kids to bed. It's adult humor.
It is foul, right? Like the two hockey players come to pick up Wayne's sister, and what follows is a machine gun of insults at the hockey players that they don't get it, and you're just trying to keep up. Just turn the captions on. It's the only way you will. It's brutally ruthless. He's like, oh, what have you been doing? Feeding the ducks? And you're like, oh my God, he really said that. And you'll just fall over laughing. It's a great show.
All right, Kiso. I looked him up and I forgot what he looked like, but yes, you're right. He has the look. And he's 40, so he can play it for another 20 years probably.
That's
if he doesn't
right.
age too much.
That's right. So okay.
Yes. Okay. 3:00 tomorrow. I'm looking at the seats. Looks like there's a lot of seats. I'm good.
That's right. Get the seat you want without having to fight everybody, and you'll be.
Thank you, Jim. Jim, if you were here, I would take you as my date, but you're not.
Aw, I feel pretty now. So pretty.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so how much time is left on the Kickstarter?
We have
5 days to go.
5 days to go, and we'd love to see another 11 backers. At least another 11 backers to hit another stretch goal, right?
Next Tuesday at 1:21 Eastern, it expires.
That's my Gen Con travel day. Oh. So, man.
Yeah, speaking of Gen Con, are we going to have you with us next week, Jim? Are you going to?
I don't know if I think I will. I think I'll be on for a while. I talked about this. Do we want to segue into Gen Con? Do we want to talk about Gen Con for a little bit?
Yeah, let's go ahead, guys.
Okay.
We'll talk about Gen Con a little bit.
So, next week's going to be a very busy week for me. So I'm driving over to Indy tomorrow. I'm driving over to Indy on Tuesday. The auction setup is all day Wednesday. And then Wednesday night, I believe I can be on for a while. But then I have the Diana Jones Awards. And I've talked about this before. I'll say it again. I'm an actual sponsor of the Diana Jones Awards. So if you actually look in the Gen Con program that dropped virtually today, and you look at the Diana Jones Awards, you'll actually see where I'm a sponsor of the Diana Jones Awards. The Diana Jones Awards are an award ceremony without all the racist overtones that we have talked about with other award ceremonies. It's industry professionals recognizing individuals or organizations within the industry that have really achieved something in the past year or deserve recognition for something in the past year. One of the things that I'm really hoping for now, as a sponsor, I have no input on the vote. I don't get a vote, but I'm very happy to see Adepticon is in the running for an industry for a Diana Jones this year. When you know how Adepticon started as just a bunch of guys that like to play 40K and decided to pull together and have a small show, Adepticon has grown into the single largest miniature gathering in the world. It rivals Games Day of any size at any point. Adepticon, I really hope wins the award, but that's just me. Then next week, Gen Con kicks off on Thursday. And so I'll be working at the auction on Thursday morning for intake. I'll probably take a little bit of a break. I have a game scheduled to Thursday afternoon, but then I'll be back and I'll be at the podium probably a good chunk of Thursday night. We've got a lot of RPGs to go through. Then I will be the lead auctioneer for all of the miniature sections. So that includes pre-paints, unpaints of all makes and sizes, the entire Games Workshop section. And then after that, I'll have a bit of a break. And then boom, we're right into the collectibles auction. So I'll be the lead auctioneer for collectibles on Friday night.
You have a list already of the collectibles that are there?
No, I don't. Amazing? But we'll be working on that. I'll come back to that. Then Saturday, I'm mostly off for auctioning for the better part of Saturday. And then I'll be back at it with the charity auction. I'll be the lead auctioneer for the charity auction on Saturday night. So let me talk about a little bit of behind the scenes. So I don't know who's watching this that might come to Gen Con or is coming to Gen Con or doesn't care about Gen Con. The Gen Con auction is a tradition of Gen Con. It's been there since 1969, 1970s, since Gen Con 1 or 2. I can't remember exactly when. The longest person to volunteer at the Gen Con auction, I believe, was Tom Wham, who put in almost 30 plus years. It was only recently that Tom quit coming to Gen Con. The Gen Con auction has grown exponentially. I was talking about this before the show, and I want to just share a couple of numbers because this is a staggering amount of things. Last year was the first year that the Gen Con auction moved from where it had traditionally been in Indianapolis to across the street in the Marriott in a ballroom. It gave us a lot more space. Now, there was a lot of concern. Oh, gosh, you're off the main drag. Oh, woe is you. It's going to suck. There may be people who are luminaries within the industry who made a great deal of public projections that it was going to bomb and fail, and they were wrong. 95% of what was put in the store sold in 3 days. The auction saw an unprecedented number of items go across the block the amount of stuff that didn't sell is minuscule compared to the amount that did sell. And so I'll explain how the auction and the store work. The store is consignment. So people essentially say, I am never going to play this copy of, in my case, Sonar Family. I'm going to get rid of this at the consignment store. And you can set 3 prices. Highest usually is on Thursday, next is Friday, and then the lowest, I don't want to take this home, price is for Saturday. And last year, the auction had 8,600 items. 8,600 items. Oh, I'm getting there, Jerry. Don't spoil it. Jerry's one of my coworkers in the auction. So we had 8,600 items in the store. Again, 95% of those sold. We did 12,000 items total between the auction, the live auctions, and the store. That was last year. We got the horrific final numbers of what we're facing next week. We're facing 18,000 items in the consignment store. And almost 5,200 in the live auction. And so when I say I'm going to be a busy guy next week, it's going to be crazy. What have we got collectible-wise? I'm actually bringing an advanced D&D fighting wheel, a very, very nice fighting wheel in an envelope, in the correct envelope. It's just gorgeous. I know some other things. There's a couple of autographed Gary Gygax t-shirts, convention t-shirts that Gary signed. I've seen some bits and drabs here and there. But what will happen is as items are brought in, my counterpart, Bill Meinhardt, and I will literally look at everything that's coming through. And so Bill and I usually spend all day Thursday going through what's coming in. And as we see things, we're pulling them for the collectibles auction. Some people will say, this is collectible, put it in the collectible section. And it is not. But more often than not, what we will do is we will find things and people don't realize they're valuable. One of the things that was really good is a few years ago, we had somebody who brought in a perfect copy of the true first printing of the Delta Green rule book. And it was flawless. And they just wanted to chuck it into RPGs for next to nothing. And we were like, time out. And so I think it sold for north of $200. I think somewhere in there. My favorite story, I'm going to kill the camera for just a second so you don't see my backside. Hold on.
Uh-oh. Oh, damn it.
Oh, I know. You're all terribly disappointed. But I want to show you one of my favorite finds. Okay, come on down.
See, Mike would have stood up.
Yeah, I know.
I have no shame.
Okay. So, one of the things that we do, again, we look at stuff, right? One year we had the RPGA sold miniature cases. They actually sold miniature cases, and we had somebody who put 3 of them in. I think they even had a really low buyout on them, and we were like, whoa, we've never seen these before. Nobody has seen these. And so we reached out to the seller and told him, A, we're going to move them in collectibles. B, no buy it now price. Like, these need to go to the collectibles auction. And I think he got north of $500, $600 for each. And he was over the moon. And so he donated the proceeds from one to the charity auction, auction fund, which is tremendous, right? So this is, I have something that we found a few years ago. A lot of times people just bring whatever box they have handy. And so we had somebody a few years ago who had a box of old Judges Guild material. I've never actually even bothered to look in the box at the Judges Guild material because this is what the box says. You should be able to see this.
TSR Hobbies.
TSR Hobbies. And if you look, let me move this. The signature on the customs form is Ernie.
Oh, wow.
Huh.
And so this is a box of gaming material that went to Canada on November 17th of 1976.
Wow.
Huh.
And so if you look at it, it's even more interesting. There's actually a list of all the items that were in the box when it was shipped to Canada. Came to a total of $42. I don't know of another piece of Dungeon Hobby Shop ephemera that's like this. You can pull off my face. You don't need to get that close.
Oh.
But the guy put it in the auction as just the old Weird Judges Guild stuff. He didn't give a shit about the box and didn't notice the box. And then we noticed the box on intake and we're like, whoa. And it was one of the top 10 items that year. And so this is the kind of stuff that's great at the auction, because you can ask me today and I can say, well, there's a few things here and there that we've seen coming in as far as in the initial sort of pass, but you just never know until you get there. And because you have people literally, they just root through their closets and they just throw whatever at it, it means that sometimes we get some real gold among all the rest. Harold Johnson volunteers at the Gen Con auction every year. And Harold always brings shrink wrapped modules, and they do very, very well. There's always a half a dozen modules in the case from Harold. There's just a lot of neat stuff. Now, one of the things that we're going to do this year, because we have such an insane volume of things that are coming in the consignment store, the auction, the group that runs the Gen Con auction is going to actually kick off a Discord server next week. And they're going to take pictures of what's on tables and put that up for people to see. We anticipate lines. We anticipate a lot of people going through the consignment store. This is an effort to try to sort of help people understand what's on the table and what's in the sections. But we're really going to be under the gun and moving pretty aggressively to try to get all of this through and set up and ready. It's going to be nuts. I've never seen numbers like this. I mean, some of the sections have 300 or 400 items, and I can go fast. This is the first time at Gen Con I think I'm going to have to go this fast for as long as I'm going to have to go. And it's great, right? It makes for an exciting time. It makes for a lot of fun. The Gen Con auction is one of the premier auctions for the variety of things. It's one of the premier auctions for the collectability aspect. It's the second largest charity auction that I helm a year. Gary Con, strangely, against the odds, we at Gen Con, we have an entire vendor hall donating items to raise money for charity. And it's amazing. It's spectacular. But strangely enough, people donating odd items at Gary Con, we've crushed $50,000 now at Gary Con 2 years in a row. And that's an astronomical number. But Gen Con is very close. I had an email out today to the Gen Con staff because I really want to make sure we have our charity partners there before the charity auction. This is good work. Like, this is good fun. I can't tell you how much fun it is to be at the podium and you get two guys that have both been looking for something for the same time. You get the wife who has a very narrow focus of like Ravenloft. I watched two women get in it over Ravenloft module last year, and it was one of the funniest things I've ever seen, right? They're just hate glaring at each other because they both want whatever the Lord Soth module was. And I'm happy, right? Like, one of them won and the other was just bitter. And that's okay, right? But the
my
auction,
wife glares at me all the time at auctions. That's not a big deal.
Well, that's not why. It's something different, Zach. You're spending her inheritance.
But
like that.
But if you're an ephemera guy, if you're an interesting kind of ephemera guy, I can tell you that the Gen Con auction hauls up stuff that's just, it's different, it's unusual, it's got categories with a lot of crossover. I have one of the TSR RPGA belt buckles. I have two of the RPGA belt buckle, the blue ones, the blue material ones. One of them is Jim Ward's, and one of them is Duke Siegfried's. And I got Duke's at the Gen Con auction.
Nice.
There's a lot of great and interesting things that come through the Gen Con auction. And if you've never been, if you're coming to Gen Con, I would really, really tell you, there is nothing like that auction. It will pull you in, and you can't imagine not going to it again. It has ups and downs. Like, there's some years it's feast, there's some years it's fallow. Last year, we had a collectibles top 10 that was mind-boggling. We had one of the TSR annual reports. They're rare as hen teeth. We think there's 3 or 4. We know of at least 3. And one of them sold for an astronomical amount of money last year. And it was either the number 1 or second highest amount of money we've ever had across the podium. And that's really sort of saying something. So the market for collectibles is up for role-playing game collectibles. There's certainly new buyers every year. A lot of the faces who were heavy hitters last year, I've never seen before. I hope to see them again. But it's just good fun. It's really, really a good fun. And I can't imagine a Gen Con without it. I just can't. I just don't know
the last time I went was 15 years ago, and I had a blast. And I love the auction. I love the consignment store. I got some good deals and stuff. But my favorite store, I only went to a few Gen Cons. My favorite store was, the auction goes all day long. It starts in the morning and it goes and goes and goes to the night. So you can walk in any time. And there's usually, when I went 15 years ago, there was a schedule, and you would say, "Oh,
yes." And we have a schedule. We will have a schedule. There's a tentative schedule right now, but as soon as it's finalized, it'll be posted up on the doors.
So I went in. I'm just wandering around Gen Con one year, and I walk in, and it's like RPG stuff that's not D&D, but that's all the description of it. And they start auctioning off an entire MERP collection, perfect condition. Yep. Nobody in there knows what MERP is. Not a clue. Me and one other guy. And so this is like starting bid $5, buyout $15. We're talking the big, yeah. Me and the other guy look at each other, buy out, buy out, buy out, buy out. That's all we're yelling. And he goes, well, I guess the auction's going to come down to these two gentlemen who gets to yell buy out first, because the buyouts were way too low.
Yes.
Way too low for this stuff. And so, oh my gosh, I came out with a stack. He came out with a stack. We were both happy. We gave each other a thumbs up because we were the only two people in there that knew what was going on at that time. Even the guys behind the counter that were auctioning didn't really know what was going on. They didn't understand what was going on. But MERP stuff in beautiful condition.
So that's just it, right? This is a hobby filled with people who buy things that they never read and never touch. And they put it away. They bag it, board it, they put it away. And we get so many things at the Gen Con auction that are in such great shape. But let me talk to something differently. One of the great joys of the Gen Con auction for me is the fact that some of my best friends in the world are people I've gotten to know through the Gen Con auction. Bill Meinhardt, I worked shoulder to shoulder with Bill the entire week of Gen Con, and really and truly, I think he trusts me. I trust him. He's got a depth of knowledge. I have an intuition, and we work really, really, really well as a team. Jeff Emery, the wily Canadian, the collector from Alberta, great guy. I got to know Jeff through the Gen Con auction, and I count him as one of my best friends. Mark Greenberg, another serious heavy collector. My story with Mark is much better. The first Gen Con auction that I went to, I decided to sit in the collectibles auction and sort of see what was going on and so on. And TSR did a press kit. TSR did a press kit where the paper sort of there was an 8.5 by 11, and then the next sheet in front of it was a little shorter, and the next sheet was a little shorter, and the next sheet was a little shorter. It was a gigantic pain in the ass to do. But they made these press kits up, and it's rare. It's not super rare, but it is very rare. And Mark had always wanted one. And so one came up in the collectibles auction. So Mark is bidding on it and bidding on it and bidding on it. And he's pretty much beat everybody else until this Yahoo, I'm the Yahoo, raised my bidder card, and I end up winning. And in the most Greenbergian fashion, as soon as the auction moves on to the next item, he literally gets up from his chair in the front row. He walks around in the back. He sits down next to me, and he says, "Hi, I'm Mark Greenberg. Who the hell are you?" And we have been fast friends ever since, right? It's like an AKM reunion. You literally, you see people. There used to be a dinner every year. We haven't done the dinner for a couple of years, but literally the folks who hang out on the AKM and who've been there for 20 years, they're floating around in the audience. The Burnt Wire Brothers, Mark was like, when Mark asked me, "Who the hell are you?" I was like, "Well, I'm on the AKM." And he goes, "Really? Really?" And I was like, "Yeah, this is my name. This is my name on the AKM." And he goes, "That's you?" And I was like, "Oh, I love you too." but I will say that the Gen Con auction has something going for it that a lot of auctions wish they had. You know, there's all sorts of conventions around the world that have an auction, but the spirit of Gen Con really has managed, this Gen Con auction has managed to stay together for 50 years. It's a great place to meet like-minded fellows, men and women. It's a great place to find some bargains in the consignment store. It's a great place to fill in holes in your collection. It's just a great thing to enjoy and appreciate. And so I've waxed on and on and on, but I would really say if you're going to Gen Con, if you've never been to the auction, you absolutely have to take the time and make the time and be there. We'd love to see you. We hope you'll be there. Bid, and just have a great time and see things that you might never see again. I mean, really and truly, the TSR annual report. I've heard about it for a decade. I'd never seen one until I got to auction one off last year, and that was our number one item.
Who got those originally, Jim? Who got the annual reports?
So the annual report was done by TSR as an attempt to try to woo investors or woo Random House. It was made up. It was essentially made up because the partnership at that point was Gary and the Blooms. And so it really wasn't a requirement for their partnership. What they did is they created it as a means of trying to show people how serious the TSR Hobbies was. And so it's laughable when you see the pictures in it. You're just dying because they went through and they're like, Tom Wom, you need to wear a suit and a tie. And Tom's like, I don't want to be in that, right? It's one picture after, you know, like Tom's like, I had to tuck my beard into my knees. I don't like this. This hurts, right? And meanwhile, the four horsemen are like, yeah.
Hey, Jim, how many years have you done this?
Oh gosh, I think 2011 was my first year, so this is like.
Can I ask an item question from you?
Sure, go ahead.
How many of these have you seen pop up?
I have no idea what that is.
It's a Dungeons and Dragons. Yeah, instructional material for schools. Dungeons and Dragons film strip program.
I've never seen one of those.
Okay,
I've never seen one of those.
All right. Well, it has film strips.
No, I've never seen one of those.
I'm just curious whenever everyone popped up. I never know. I never know what to ask.
No, I don't know. I'm sure Bill Meinhardt might have one, but I've never seen one of those.
He sent me somewhere else to ask about it because he said that to ask. Unfortunately, he said to ask Jim Ward about 4 months ago. He said to ask Jim Ward.
Oh,
and so I don't have
not going to work out. Yeah.
No,
and
I just was curious. That's one of the rare things that I've owned and seen.
Jen,
if we had it, it would be yes. And so let me explain one other thing. So the collectibles section every year, before the auction kicks off, we usually have a pretty good idea of what our top 10 items are. And we save the top 10 items to the very end of the evening. Now, in older times, the collectibles auction used to run till 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning.
Oh boy.
That's horseshit. And I'm not doing that. And so since I've been doing the collectibles auction, we've been ending at a more reasonable time. We've also been raising a lot higher volumes as far as price goes, but we are ending at a more reasonable time. But we always end with the top 10, and the top 10 are usually pretty easy to spot. You see things come in, and you're like, "Yep, that's gonna be in the top 10." Sometimes it's like a top 15. I think we did have in the last year or two. We had like a top 12, like you just have so many great items that you don't want to just. It's a little better and it carries a little momentum if you have that top 10, but it's okay to go to 12 every now and then if you've really got the items that justify it. One year, the top 10, one of the top 10 items was the Grenadier Snow White set. If you aren't familiar with it, yeah, Grenadier did a Snow White miniature set to convince Disney to let them have the license. Disney found out they were made with lead. Problem. You can't sell that in the park.
Here, kids.
Yes. And so I think we know of about 4 or 5 of the Grenadier Snow White set. It's rare. It's insanely rare. But we've seen 2 that I know of in the last decade come through the Gen Con auction. Then Titan. We do see fairly nice copies of Titan every now and then. We've had one really perfect copy of Titan come through. We've had some good copies of Titan come through. These are the true first printings.
Those
We
are the
get all
box?
sorts of stuff. Yep. And we've got a Titan coming into this auction. So we do have a Titan that will be in the collectibles auction. I haven't seen the condition yet. If it's super clean, if it's really, really great, if it has the Giant Lands expansion and so on, we'll probably have it towards the end of the collectibles section. But I do know there's a Titan coming. But you know, I know that there's some school binders, some of the D&D licensed binders. I know they'll be in the collectibles section.
Nice.
But it's really going to be boots on the ground when we start seeing it all roll in. That's when the collectibles will start to sort itself out.
Nice.
And people don't know where to put things, right? Like they just put things in odd places, and so a lot of the intake is us prowling. We prowl the intake and look at the stacks to see what we have, and go through and try to find the stuff that might have been lost.
Because you don't want MERP just to go random under random non-D&D TSR stuff, because that would be a disaster if some idiot picked it all up for $15 a piece. Yes, I know.
You know, you should just take your victory lap and you're good. Like you're really, really good. I mean,
I've heard this story many times from you.
I think we've all heard this story several times, and I'm happy for him, right? I am genuinely, I'm happy for him. But,
well, can I ask you? I want to ask you a professional question, Jim, because this is something I've been very interested in the last couple of years. I've gotten into this because I think it has potential. Have you seen? I think last year you had some slabbed items. Have you seen an uptick in slabbed items?
So let me talk to that. Last year's the first time we saw slabbed items. Last year is the first time that we had shrink wrapped modules slabbed and in the cabinet. And interestingly, there were modules that were slabbed that were also unslabbed copies in the collectibles cabinet. And so interestingly, it may have been that they were actually issues of strategic review, but the slabbed did better price point wise. And so I think that's a real lesson. Jeff Emery has recently gotten some slab. Yeah. So Jeff Emery bought a bunch of shrink wrapped modules from the store, the consignment store last year at auction, and sent them in and got them graded. And I think he had 9.6s and 9.8s out of what he bought. That's pretty impressive. That's really pretty impressive.
This is one of my better ones. This is a 9.8, which, as you know, that 10s are impossible, but 9.8.
Yes.
Oasis of the White Palm. It is actually in shrink. The shrink is ranked as A+. So this is probably the nicest item I had slab. Period. But I'm just interested because I don't display, and Zach can tell you this. He's been in my house. I don't really display anything. My wife promised. My wife promised me if I clean my office out for the first time in 20 years, she will build me a shelf where I can display things and put them up like this, like artwork and stuff. So I'm interested in displaying some of this stuff because I just want to have it so people can look at it and say, wow,
so
9.8, that's crazy, you know, and be able to look at it.
So this is my take on this. If you have a collectible module, let's say it's in the shrink. There's a lot of people that have them in the shrink. Matt that used to volunteer at the auction all the time. Matt has a full set of TSR in the shrink. I know that Alex has a full set of TSR in the shrink. This is great. But the market is clearly headed to slabbed for investor grade. And what do I mean by that? So if you are familiar, comic book distribution in the United States is handled mostly by Diamond Comics. Now, there are some breakouts, but for the last almost 40 plus years, Diamond has had the lock on comic book distribution. I have an insight because of somebody I used to know who worked for Diamond. And the way Diamond has a warehouse. And now you have to understand that Steve Jeppe owns Diamond. And Jeppe has several pieces of the organization. There's Diamond Comics that are the distributors. There's Diamond the distributor. There was a chain of stores around Baltimore called Diamond Comics, which were just traditional comic book stores. But Diamond also has a gigantic warehouse facility where at the time, now this was 30 years ago, anything that was in previews, Diamond caught 2 of. And so it was like the Indiana Jones warehouse. It was like Raiders of the Lost Ark, where there was a section that was 1978, and then it was sorted by 12 sections of months. And there were 2 of everything that came out in the month of July in 1978 in that pile. It was all in boxes, like bankers' boxes. and poster boxes and so on. And so then, late in the 90s, I think it was late in the 90s, Jeppy decided he needed a venue to sell collectibles, to be an auction house for collectibles. And that's where the Diamond Gallery kicked off. And so the Diamond Gallery for the longest time was the premier comic book, and still probably is to some degree, the premier comic book auction house. I have a friend who had 30 plus, almost 40 long boxes of valuable comics and finally got tired of moving them all and sold everything. And he took the giant stonking thing of cash that he had and he bought 12 comic books through the Diamond Gallery. And he has them all on one wall. And every year he sits down and he goes, that one. And he gets rid of the one he doesn't like and he sells it on eBay or sells it through. He doesn't go through Diamond. He doesn't have enough volume to make it worthwhile.
Yeah.
And then he buys a replacement with the proceeds. And he's always upgrading. Once a year, he's always upgrading, but he has 12 comic books on the wall. Now, he's my bellwether for how this has all gone. And about 3-4 years ago, he began moving in slabs. And now everything on his wall is slabbed. He refuses to look at anything that's not a 9.8. And I think that's, you know, we are seeing a lot of people that are like, I'm going to get it slabbed. Okay, great. But if you have a 6.4, this is where the market's going to decide. And so the 9.8s, the 9.6s, if you don't have a 9 at the start of that number, I just don't know where it's really going to go. But it is clear that the people who want RPG collectibles are more than willing to pay for the higher grades, pay for the higher quality. And that's exactly like every other collectible industry. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's comic books. It doesn't matter if it's Fabergé eggs. It just doesn't matter. People with money are only wanting to spend it once, and they're willing to pay a premium to spend it once. And so autographs, yes, they can make things more valuable. But it's always back to condition. And frankly, my guess is in 5-10 years, the best items in the collectibles cabinet will be slabbed, and they will be 9 point somethings, usually 9.6 or 9.8, and they will be the things that bring the top dollar. Now
I absolutely agree with you, and I that's why I'm 61 years old. I don't.
Wow.
What am I going to do with this stuff? I need to get rid of this stuff. I've been slabbing for eventual sale for my grandkids and wife. If something happens to me, it makes it much easier just to say I have a i4. No. Just it's a 9.8. There you go.
It's a 9.8. Nobody's going to dick around with a 9.8.
And so that's what I really am looking for. That and display purposes. But I sent Eric a link right now. So Heritage Auctions, you talked about Diamond distribution. Heritage Auctions probably has also one of the premier comic auctions every year where they'll sell auction number ones. Action ones. They've had some amazing books over the years.
Yes,
I think
they're very aggressive. They've very aggressively moved into the space because they want to be in the space. Diamond Gallery owned it for the better part of 20 years and was cleaning up, and there needs to be competition.
So Heritage right now is running the first slab D&D auction they've ever run. And so I sent Eric the link. So if you want to check it out, it's kind of fun just to watch and see what they have. But most of the stuff I'm looking right now at the top of the list, there's a 9.4 against the Giants, a 9.4 S1. There's, it's let me see. Here's a Ravenloft. It's a 9.3. So you're right. Most of the stuff is higher grade, but it's going to be fun to watch. It's got about another 3 weeks to go. It's going to be fun to see where some of this stuff ends up. And for those of you that might want to buy something, there's a lot of items that are only sitting at $1 or even no money. So
yes,
I don't know that they'll be that way in 3 weeks. The most of the prices I'm sure will rise. But it could be fun to have a 9.8 Dark Sun module or just something, because it's kind of like Jim says. I think that's where the market's moving to, is because look, it's like comics. Most of these modules were played, right? We took them out, we opened up, we played them. There's not a lot of 9.8s of most of the stuff, or 9.6, 9.4s. And the same reason there's not a lot of comics in that condition. Now, comics though. The advantage comics had was people started realizing they were worth something about 40 years ago.
Yes. Actually, I can tell you what the date was. I can actually tell you the date. I don't know the specific day But I can tell you when comic book collecting started. I actually had, the only time I ever met him and talked to him, I actually got to hear Steve Jeppy talk about this. So Steve Jeppy had a comic book store. Steve Jeppy was interviewed in like 70 or 71 about comic books and collecting comic books, because he had a comic book store. Now this is before bags and boards. This is before everything that we know had coalesced and was actually a thing. And he talked about it. He talked about how he got interviewed by the Baltimore Sun, who contributed. The way the Associated Press wire service used to work is all the members would write up local stories and they would put them on the AP wire. And if you had a slow news day and you didn't have anything to put in your local paper, you could rip something off of the AP wire and you could have filler. And the week that they interviewed him for comic book collecting was a slow news week. And literally every newspaper across the United States, all the radio stations that subscribed to this, everybody ran that story and talked about comic book collecting. And suddenly it started. And this is what Steve Jeppy used to say. This is what he said in front of me, and this was one of his like go-to speeches. He said there wasn't anything comic book that came out after that story ran that was really valuable. That after that went out, and it sort of percolated in everybody's heads, and everybody was like, I could be a comic book collector. People began aggressively collecting comics. But the reason that Steve said that was because the numbers of comic books and how many were printed and so on and so forth, even then in the 70s, were still in the thousands. They were in the thousands. And Mike and I are the two comic book gurus on this, that we talk and trade all these stories, right? When you look at the comic book industry and you look at the numbers of what the comic book industry was selling in raw books 30 years ago, 40 years ago, versus what they're selling now, it's horrific. The decline in 40 years is just staggering. But Jeppy's point was that anything that was printed before that really has value because it was older, right? There's only so many Superman, Batman's first appearance, Superman's first appearance. That number is quantitatively small because before comic book collecting, people read the shit out of these. They beat the crap out of these. They handed them down to their kids. They lent them out to their cousins, and nobody gave one thought to trying to keep them in great shape.
They stored them in a box in their attic. They threw them on a box, put them in their attic. They pull them out, read them every once in a while, throw them back in their attic. They were not kept in poly bags or.
That's right. I have a box of Richie Rich comics from when I was a kid, and they are beaten. They are beaten to death. I got them in my stocking at Christmas. They are not, they're in no shape or form. I've looked at them once in 10 years. I should pitch them, but I just haven't. But Jeppy's point is if you wanted to call yourself a comic book collector, if you truly wanted to be, yes, paper dries during World War II, absolutely right.
Yeah.
But Jeppy's point was if you wanted to be a comic book collector, you needed, yes, there are things that come out that are blazingly hot for a while, and then 5 or 10 years later, they come crashing back down. And Jeppy said you absolutely made money on these people. Right? Witchblade #1. When Witchblade #1 came out, it went up to some astronomical price, and people who wrote it up and sold it out made a fortune. Then it went back down. Like at one point in the last 5-6 years, you could have picked up a Witchblade #1 for $20 in great shape because nobody gave a shit. But now it's back up on the rise again. And so, yes, that is ephemera. Right? Griffith's talking about Cerebus. I remember Dave Sims' Cerebus and that run. He's like, I'm doing 300 and I'm out. And nobody believed him. But he was, but guess what? That's what he did. But Jeppy's point is if you wanted to be a comic book collector, you ignored everything after that date, after 70 or 71, because the only thing you should invest in is the best you can afford, the best you can find from the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, first appearance of Spider-Man, first appearance of Fantastic Four, blah, 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 blah. And that's what Jeppy heavily bought. He absolutely lived by what he was saying. So where do I come with that? So let's talk about TSR. Let's talk about role-playing games and so on. So the thing about collecting role-playing games is that everything that we love and we remember, right? And Mike said this earlier: G1, G2, G3, D1, D2, D3, Player's Handbook, DM's Guide, Holmes box set, and so on. Very few remain in really spectacular condition because we beat the shit out of them. We played the hell out of them. And that's why all the boxes have blown corners. That's why the modules are threadbare. A giant swath of Bill Meinhardt's collection came from Brian Bloom. And Brian would take it. He'd get it at TSR. He would take it home. He would put it on a shelf. He would never touch it again. And this was perfect, right? This is how you should do this. But most of us, I call them survivors, right? So I'm a 12-inch GI Joe guy. I always was a 12-inch GI Joe guy. And one of the 12-inch GI Joes I have is in the original coffin box, and the guy sold it to me because what happened was on his 10th birthday, his dad bought it for him as a birthday present and was going to give it to him. And his dad saw him flirting with the girl from next door. Uh-oh. And his dad was like, nope, no more toys. And he stuck it in the attic, and it stayed there for the next 40 years or 30 years. And when he was cleaning out the house, he found it. And so the box is a little aged, but inside is a perfect man of action, right? It's a survivor. I have a Holmes box set where literally the guy got it for a birthday present, never took a look at it, never opened it, and took it to a swap meet to sell when he found it cleaning out his old bedroom closet. And I paid like $20 for it. It's a Holmes box set and it's in the shrink. That's the kind of stuff we're talking about. That's the stuff that against all odds, right? One of the more recent Action Comics Superman first appearance that has sold in the last 20 years is from the collection that was found in a box in an attic on a farm. That it's one of the best conditions because like the kid got it, read it once, threw it in the box, and never touched it again. And that's the kind of stuff that we're looking for. And so, yes, there are some people who have been amassing collections of these for a while. Every year at the Gen Con auction, if something shrink comes up, there's a feeding frenzy. There's always been a feeding frenzy. The idea of collecting one of everything in the shrink got started with Matt at the auction like 15 years ago, 20 years ago. Alex followed in suit, but the ability to complete that collection is fewer and farther between. And so slabs are the next step. Slabs are the next step. There's no question of that. If you have something truly fabulous, it's in the shrink, you're going to want to get it slabbed. There's no question of that, especially like you said, Mike, when we think about the family members after we pass this mortal coil, do they want to deal with 50 boxes of shit? No. They'd rather deal with 20.
Jim, you and I have both known people that have passed away in this industry. And usually what's left behind is a huge headache for the family because no one loves your collection like you do. You may think they do, and you can tell your wife that this box is valuable. You can tell your kids this stuff's worth a lot of money. You know what's going to happen after you pass away? They're going to dump it because they don't want to deal with it.
And let me say that there was a collector that used to come to the Gen Con auction every year. Nicest guy in the world. I used to go eat dinner with him at least one night every Gen Con. And then he died. And his mom has this giant collection and is trying to figure out what to do with it. And to this day, I'm not sure all of it landed in hands where people would actually appreciate it. Mm-hmm. And so that's forced me to look at, ta-da! Now, one of the things that's good for me is that my son loves the artwork. He loves all the original art that I bought. A lot of this other stuff, he doesn't care. That's okay. At least I know that, right? But it's a hard reality, right? Like people really struggle with this. And what I would say is, wouldn't you rather be the shepherd that sees the things you love going to other people who will love them and appreciate them in the same way? We all have mountains of these things. And eventually, I'll sum it up this way. My late father was, there's a collecting gene that runs in my family, right? He was British military stuff, Aladdin lamps, and something called Toby jugs, and I can't even begin to get into it. But he said there's only two phases to life, and there's a real wisdom in this sentence. There's only two phases to life: accumulation and dispersal. And you want to be the person in charge of dispersal. You don't want somebody else being in charge of dispersal.
Yeah, there's a lot of
Absolutely.
Fair
Right.
enough.
So
And
I do have
and
follow-up
let me
story,
let me end this real quick. So anybody watching this is like, man, Kitchen, you're a downer, man. You suck. So let me throw
That was
something
Mike
else out to
Elliott.
you. You gotta go through a drop dead exercise. You need to go through a drop dead exercise, which is what would happen if you were gone, just like that. How do people pick up the pieces? And so I have a couple documents on my desktop that are, this is what I want to have happen. This is what I'm really encouraging you to do. This is what I want done with my remains. This is where all the life insurance and all the investments. It's literally this is the combination of this safe. This is the combination of this safe, and so on. But if you go on Amazon, you can get rolls of stickers, numbered stickers. So usually it's 1 to 500, 501 to 1,000, 1,001 to 1,500. You can go however high you need to go. But I started an Excel sheet a long time ago and started using these numbered stickers. And so there's a numbered sticker on the back of tons and tons and tons of my stuff that corresponds to the Excel sheet, which describes what it is, describes how much I paid for it or how much it's worth. And if I have a point of contact, right? I learned a very valuable lesson. I've talked about my art dealer before. When I was younger, the guy I used to buy a lot of things from, he was diagnosed with cancer. He spent a year sorting things out. And one of the things that he did is he sold off everything. He sold off 99% of what he owned. He had a full run of Weird Tales. It was the finest collection of Weird Tales ever assembled. He sold off most of his original artwork. He sold off the library. Jerry had collected from 1933 until 1993. He oversaw selling all of this off. But he kept the very, very, very best for his wife in a small cabinet. It was under a metal sculpture of the ship of Ishtar. And each item had a note card in it with a name and a phone number and a price that was already agreed on. That if she ever needed money, she did not need money. If she ever needed money, all she had to do was pull something out, pull out the card, call that person, and they would send the check the next day. And this is the kind of stuff that it was. It was an autographed copy of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, the true first printing, autographed by Jules Verne. There was an autographed copy of the true first printing of Alice in Wonderland, Through the Looking Glass, blah, 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 blah. It's fine, it's fine to collect. But Jeff Emery, who really and truly, I love Jeff to death. Jeff has a great point. He says, if you're collecting, when you buy something, if you're not upgrading, you're hoarding. And it's hard for people to understand that. And so I think Jeff has a very good eye on this and a lot of wisdom in this, right? I am now looking at, it's like a game of golf, and I'm looking at the back nine. And I know that at some point my game's going to end. And I would rather be in charge of sort of getting rid of all this stuff than somebody else and seeing it go somewhere where it's beloved. I encourage you, if you're watching this and you're sitting on a dragon's hoard of stuff, start finding a way. Start thinking about who's going to have to deal with this mess after you're gone, and let that be the motivation to cleaning it up in the first place.
And a lot, and most of the time, Jim, because this has happened to me in the last few years, I've had several friends who are big collectors pass away, and most of them are absolutely unexpected. And the person typically is left to deal with it is the wife. And typically wives, while they are supportive of our hobbies and smile and nod, they don't want to deal with this stuff. My wife doesn't want to deal with this. I mean,
Nope.
she doesn't just want to deal with that. Just that pile there she doesn't want to deal with, much less the 87 other boxes there. So when you hit that point, I always said when I got to be 60, I was going to start selling my collection. And I said that when 60 was a long way away. And then I hit 60 last year. I was like, oh, it's
Shit.
now. And so I started selling a lot of stuff. And I've been selling a lot of my valuable stuff. Because I don't want my wife and kids and whoever's behind you have to deal with it. It is a hassle. And look, even if you have a moderate collection, let's say you just have 10 or just 10 boxes of stuff. I'm just saying, I'm just thinking maybe somebody here only has 10 boxes. Just sit there and go, who would like this stuff after okay, first of all, do I know somebody that needs the money? Is somebody in my family need the money? If they do, you should probably be selling it anyway. But think about who would like this. Do I have a friend that just wants to collect stuff that's always wanted this module or this piece of artwork?
Okay.
Is there a charity that would benefit if this was auctioned off? My wife knows now. I mean, I've told her if something happens to me, whatever's left needs to go to auctions. And people like Jim, I've told her to talk to people like Jim. I've told her to talk to people like Zach and people like Jeff Emery and like Bill Meinhardt. Find out what the stuff's worth and have it auctioned off. If it's Gen Con, if it's Gamehole Con, whatever. Auction it off, take the money and run. You'll be doing okay. You can go.
So
I hope my wife hears this because her plan currently is like the Battle of the Five Armies. Like Smog dies here in Arizona, and then she opens the doors and all you people come fight over it. That's her.
I will be on the road within 5 minutes of hearing of your demise.
So let me wrap this up with the horror story. Let me wrap this up with the horror story that should be the motivation.
Bring us down, Jim. Bring us down. Let's do it.
So when did Dave Arneson die? Dave Arneson died.
Oh, I know where you're going here. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So I can't remember what year Dave Arneson died.
2009.
2009. So of course he had to outlive Gary. Yeah. Insert your own joke. So Dave Arneson dies. And what you need to know is that Dave Arneson had a storage locker with literally everything RPG related in his entire life in the storage locker. That storage locker's contents went up for public auction. Now, the best part of this story that demonstrates everything that we're talking about is that the storage company tried desperately to work with the Arneson family. Like, hey, we don't want to put this stuff for public auction. We know it's your husband's, or we know it's Dave Arneson's. We know it's his life's work. We really want it. And they couldn't be bothered. Oof. And so I can't remember who it was in the Twin Cities that bought it. But
it was the guy that he runs a site called Dragon's Trove. Okay. And he's I've known him for a long time, and I can't remember the guy's name, but he's been selling stuff as long as I have, since the early 90s. But it was the Dragon's Trove guy,
right?
And he ended up reselling it to Noble Knight, right? Noble Knight, yeah.
I don't hold it against the people who I don't hold it against anybody who bought it in public auction. I don't hold them against that. But the hardest part of this story is the storage locker place did everything in their power to try to get the family to just pay the rent, take ownership, do whatever we want. And the family didn't want to touch it. And that's the lesson you got to remember here. This is what's got to percolate around in the back of your brain, that even when all the stars align and you get somebody who's decent trying to do you a solid about the storage locker, it couldn't get over the inertia of a family that was apathetic and couldn't care.
And you know, the tragedy, there was I can't remember the name of the magazine, Jim, maybe you do. There was a magazine that was self put together of all among the war gamers in the
The Twin Cities.
Wisconsin. Yeah, the Twin Cities in this Wisconsin area. He had a complete set of it, and I don't remember the name. I'm sorry.
Not the Domesday books, but I know what you're talking about.
No, these are the. No, I'm thinking of the Domesday books. I'm thinking of Domesday books. There was a complete set of Domesday books there. Now, let me explain to you. Domesday books. There were some copies people had never seen. I mean, it was such a low print run. Like some of the issues were in the single digits.
Yep.
I believe that set alone went for over $100,000. I mean, because they were auctioned separately.
Yes.
And bought by people that Jim and I know. And so look, I don't care how rich you are. If you can't use $100,000, you're crazy for whatever. And that's what his family, the Artisan family, that's just one set of items. One. They are the Domesday books. And
Jen would have taken 100. My wife would have taken 100.
And so I know this sounds like we're just beating a dead horse, but if you're watching this, right? If you're watching this, there are plenty of decent people in this hobby that would like to help you, right?
Absolutely.
Like I try to give people good advice about, like, people will post somewhere, what's this? And I'll be like, this is what you have. This is worth money. Don't accept any DM offers. Don't accept any direct message offers. You need to put this in a public auction that's transparent, and you'll do so much better.
And
I sold it for $20 to the first guy who sent me a message.
And to Jim's credit, every time we're on one of those Facebook pages, somebody asks, Jim says exactly that. You need to auction it in an open auction. It will get what it's worth. And I'll let people know, if anybody's listening right now, I don't buy stuff anymore, really. If you have any questions, I will gladly give you answers and probably not make an offer on it because I just can't afford it. And I would love to help you get rid of it. And I have suggestions if you ever want to know, but I'm not interested in buying stuff.
We can connect you to people who will be fair with you. And really and truly, the other thing you need to understand is there's no shortage of skeevy bastards out there that want to rip you off.
Absolutely.
And we're desperately trying to help you in this. and you know what? Eventually you give up because you can only help people who want to help themselves. And that's it.
Don't sell to the first person. You need to look. eBay is easy to use. If you don't know what something's worth, just throw it up on eBay. I mean, look, people will ask questions. If they don't know what it is, they'll say, I saw you had an i4 Oasis White Palm shrink wrap. Is the shrink wrap very torn? No. I mean, they'll ask you questions, and it will go for what it's worth. And yeah, I mean, I didn't want to end on this with too much of a downer, but that Artisan thing was horrific.
Well, but it's the lesson. It's the object lesson, right?
Yes.
So wait. I'll go back up on an up note. So two things. Behind me, because Zach's going to be on the show, I have the strategy guide for Alpha Centauri. Zach, that's my nod towards you. So, it was only the greatest game ever made. There you go, Sid Meier's Alpha Centauri.
I had that game.
I'll throw off my camera now. I'm getting kind of excited.
Yes, so it includes. I actually have the tech tree. The tech tree map is still bound in it, so I made sure to put that up for you. And then over my shoulder is also a copy of Fight in the Skies.
Oh, I love that game.
Because my car is going to be at Gen Con next week, and I'm going to take a Fight in the Skies poster to get him to autograph. So,
nice. Yeah,
cool. Yeah. And poor Mike, I had him autograph one at Gary Con, and then I found another one, and I was like, oh crap, and I got to get him to sign that one too.
Can I just throw something real quick? Because you're going to Gen Con, and that's going to be awesome, and I can't wait to hear your stories next week. But once again, I'm gonna say something that I say every time we talk about conventions. If you do not go to a convention, go to conventions and meet your heroes now, because none of these guys are guaranteed to see tomorrow. Guys like Mike Carr and them, they're all getting older. I make it a point. I mean, the last couple of years, I've been getting a lot of stuff signed just for my own personal edification because, we've had Jeff at the con now 15 years. I didn't have him really sign anything. So this year I had him sign a bunch of stuff. I had, luckily last year I had Janelle sign stuff that she had not signed yet that I owned. And I'm very glad that I had the stuff signed last year.
Yeah, I missed getting Jim Ward. I autographed at North Texas last year. I auctioned off my first printing of Metamorphosis Alpha that was signed by Jim Ward because I had another one that I was going to get Jim Ward to autograph this year at GaryCon.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Didn't quite work out the way I intended.
No.
But really and truly, Steve Winter, Steve Marsh, all these great folks who are going to be at Gen Con next week. Take the time to get their autographs if you're there.
Yes.
Take the time
They're
to
all great
spend some
people.
time.
And they're all really great people.
Yeah, they are.
Walk
They're
up to
super
them,
nice.
awesome.
Look, guys like Jeff Easley, I mean, they're great. They're just good dudes, man. They really are good dudes.
They really, really are. And so
And they
there's
love to
the
sign their
up
stuff, and they love for you to tell them that you love their stuff. Believe me, they do not get tired of hearing that. And look, these guys made so little money back in the day as it is. If you could say something to make them happy and excited and enjoy their place in history, just do it, because really they love to hear that.
I fanboyed at Jeff D's table.
Alan is Alan.
I met Jeff D at page 1 back in January, and just telling him what his art in the A series meant to 10, 11-year-old me. I'm sure, my kids are looking at me and going, Dad, what happened to your mouth, because I'm talking to him and
I've published better things than that, Dad.
The art I directed is better than that guy did, Dad.
my big fanboy guy was Errol Otis, the first year we had him in North Texas. And
that's the year that Skeeter almost killed him, right?
Yeah. And I'm like, Errol, I mean, this is Errol freaking Otis. I'm like, come on. And so I didn't talk. That was the same year that Zach came for the first time, year 4. I barely talked to him because I was so scared. I just couldn't believe it. And then when he came back the next year, I had a stack that high of stuff. And I said, Errol, I'm going to borrow you for 30 minutes. You can talk to people as they walk by, but could you sign while you talk? He said, no problem at all. Super nice guy, great guy. And I got to fanboy. And then, of course, my ultimate fanboy moment that I'll have forever and ever was the year that he sent me an email and said, can I play in your B1 Search of the Unknown game? I know you've already sold it out, but I was wondering if I could just sit in.
No.
And for a second, I thought about going, Errol, get your ass in gear next year and sign up for the damn game. But I'm just like, and so I had Errol, and that was actually the year that Ben Barsh played my game too. And Ben, without knowing what he was in for, got to sit next to Errol as the run of the game. And I think about halfway through the game, Ben realizes that this is Errol Otis next to him. And, he was just, oh my God. And so, these, if you get a chance, if you're going to Gen Con or you're going to any con, definitely meet these guys. Don't put it off. I went from not
knowing Errol Otis to meeting him at North Texas and Gary Con. And now, almost at least every year at Gary Con, Errol will be eating breakfast by himself, see me, and I'll sit down with Errol and we'll eat breakfast. And we just shoot the shit. And we don't, I'm not like, oh, Errol, you're the best. Right?
I was. Errol is the one that I totally fan out about when I met him. My wife laughs at me for it. So him and Alan Hammock were the two that I was like, oh my God.
And what's cool is these guys are awesome. And guys like, Zach and I both have a thing now going with Alan Hammock. We have a bromance with Alan Hammock.
Alan Hammock, the ladies' man.
One of my best moments was I'm playing D&D with my group one Saturday, and my phone starts ringing, and I go, Alan Hammock. We're in the middle of a game. We're in the middle of a game here. I'll call him back later. And everybody around the table is like, what?
Alan Hammock.
Like, it's just Alan. I don't know what he's bothering me about.
I was borrowing money again.
I'll get back. I'll get back to it.
Our 11-year-old.
He's trying to dodge another paternity suit. Oh no! Wait! Alan's happily married. We just make jokes.
He is.
He's happily married.
By the way, his wife's wonderful. Wife is absolutely wonderful.
Yeah. So I was at Gary Con this past year or 2 years ago, and I had a Playboy Resort sweatshirt that I had ordered, and she goes, I had one of those. I was like, yay! I have to get one in your size for you.
You said that? Oh, that's great.
That's awesome. Anyway.
She's great.
Well, anyway,
All right,
have a great time next week, Jim. We're gonna miss you.
Yes.
And I'm sure you're gonna have a blast. You're gonna have a blast, man. And look, I don't go to big cons anymore, so you go and you have fun for Eric and I, because Eric and I don't really do the big giant.
I'll make sure to take pictures and record shenanigans. I love that they've got a limited number of players' handbooks that are arriving early, and that number is 7,500 a day.
Is that all? Well, goodness, you need to grab one before they're all gone. Jim.
So
God.
I don't know. Like, I'm not going to ask you, Zach. I'm not going to ask Mike. I'm not going to ask Michael. But I want you guys to think about this for a second, right? So when we talk about limited edition, Arkham House, the hardest Arkham House book to find, the Hornbook of Witches, I think the print run was right at around 1,000, maybe a little less, maybe a little more, but right at about 1,000. And the reason it's so hard to find is because it was printed essentially for the author, and she took delivery of most of them, and they vanished. And so you either bought it directly from Arkham House, or you got it from a very few stores that ordered them, but the majority of them just disappeared. And so when they say we're doing a limited number, there's nothing fancy about these. They're not autographed. They're not, they don't have a sticker of sold at Gen Con 2024. They don't have anything like that. They don't have anything that says 50th anniversary, anything special, but 7,500 a day. I'm pretty sure if I want one, I'm not going to, I could get a ticket and buy one. And I just, it's...
Come on, take the hint for us, Jim. Take the hint for us. Because I'm not buying it.
I'll get pictures of the line, but I will not.
Oh, God. Oh, dear God.
Yes, I know.
Well, thank you, Zach and Mike, for coming. Oh, sorry, Eric.
There is a special plate on them.
Oh, well, there you go. You need the special plate, Jim.
I didn't think there was. When I was reading the Gen Con email about this, I didn't think there was a special plate.
Roll for Combat's usually pretty accurate with their stuff.
All right.
I will say that. But of course, hopefully you were watching the whole show, because we're signing off now. Otherwise,
that's
you're late.
Right.
You're late.
Back the Kickstarter. Back horrors.
Yes, horrors too. Yes,
that's right.
Everybody loves monsters.
Mike's kids have got more things published than you do. You should support them.
Yes, Michael's kids.
Yes, the 11-year-old and 9-year-old have higher success in the RPG industry than most of the people watching this.
But only the 21-year-old has met Eric Tenkar.
Again, we were talking about successes in the industry.
By the way, I'm sorry. I wanted to say Griffin was in here. I got the book you sent, and I have not read it yet, but I appreciate it. Thank you very much. I will read this the next week or so. I don't know if he's still here or not, but thank you, Griffin. I appreciate it. That's the book we got about Dave Arneson and Blackmore, so I'm really interested in diving into that.
The USPS. By the way, there's also the UK is also issuing stamps for D&D.
Oh yes, is that next week? That's next week, right?
I think so.
I've already pre-ordered some stamps from the US. I want to get some from the UK too.
Okay, cool.
What can I say?
I think it's supposed to coincide with Gen Con, so I think you're right, Eric. I'm not sure when that
is. If you're at Gen Con, stop by the auction house, look for me. I'll be loud. You can't miss me.
Well, thank you. Thanks, Zach. Thanks, Michael. Appreciate it, guys.
Thanks, Travis.
Thank you, everybody. Pleasure.
I believe I might be on a live stream tomorrow night, which may actually be simulcast on this channel. There's definitely the Random Party Generator on Friday. Saturday, Gamers Health, and I think on Sunday I may be on an Inappropriate Characters.
Oh boy, that will be a topic of discussion if that happens.
I'll watch.
I think we'll have a lot of watches, but I'm sure it'll be fun. I gotta say,
that will be hate watched to hell and back. You the pundit.
My haters will be.
Oh boy, that will be so hate watched. So hate watched.
I will just confirm what everybody already thinks. I have no idea what it is. All right, folks. As always, be safe, be well. God bless. Roll those dice. Roll them well. Catch you all later.
Thanks.
Yeah, hooey.
Later.
Oh. And we should be